you wanted to start with that one.
Okay.
Because that one's not a hearing. And the other one's not a hearing either, but we need a quorum to vote.
Quorum for vote. Okay, sure, let's do that.
So
We can get out of here tonight. So, Mr. Meeks.
I need to start the recording of it.
It's been so long.
I know.
Open the Conservation Commission meeting for February 4th, 2014. And here's somebody. And
February
February 4th?
Yep.
And the roll call is Amy Wilson,
Brian Barrowby.
Gloria Stevenson.
Jim Stone.
Carol Gumbart?
Okay. We're going to discuss the restoration area and the deed restriction for Lot 1 on Fire Road. What do you know?
So you had given us a deed restriction that I then sent back with some revisions and forwarded to you guys, so I just wanted to make sure that that looked good, if there are any questions while we are having the opportunity.
I actually had a question and maybe a suggestion. Okay, you want to put the restrictions right in the deed. My attorney, which I met with today, and he gave me an envelope. Even if we went out to my car, I think it is in my car, and now I remember it's in a manila envelope.
Sure, it's over.
No, here. Thank you. What he suggested was you should take that deed restriction, strike that restriction, okay, and put it on as a separate notice. So when somebody does the title, that's already in the title. And then the deed should reference that with the book and page number that calls that out. Now, there's a couple of things that go on there, okay, if you think about it. Okay, if, God forbid, okay, somebody deeds that over and it's not in there, well, that's a problem, okay? And the commission wouldn't know that, okay, until it's too late.
And anybody that gets a news deed will have to research the title and then find it.
And it would already be on there, okay, so it's a yin or a yang, and it doesn't matter to me, okay, but that would seem to be.
I think it is a separate document, though, and that's what it is. It's a restriction that's recorded as a separate document.
That's fine, okay, and but when we shared emails back and forth, it was incorporated into the deed. He's suggesting that it shouldn't be incorporated into the deed.
What you sent us was a quitclaim deed.
Right,
and-
because
And then I took that out, because that's not what we were looking for.
Okay, so we are on the same page.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a
Okay, so
separate
we're going to
document.
record that document.
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
and then reference that, because that goes in the chain of title.
Right.
Oh,
right,
okay,
Yes,
so-
yes, okay.
Okay,
So-
fair enough.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're all on the same.
yeah. And so, you know, if anybody had any questions about it, you know, this is the first one we had that wasn't related to the pools, that, you know, we had done sort of the same scenario in terms of, I shouldn't say the first one, because I think we had, on Cody's, we may have had one that was similar, but not for the same kind of area, just the aura. His was riverfront and had other work and so forth. Anyway, this was the first one I redrafted, and so the purpose, again, was to give notice of the aura and the associated boarding of vegetative wetlands on the property to prohibit future development, protect and enhance wetlands and adjacent upland resource area landscape, protect natural habitats, because it's in the endangered species habitat, including rare and endangered species, and to assure restricted premises will remain in perpetuity for said purposes and prevent the use of the restricted premises that will materially interfere with said purposes. So it's not a huge area. I mean, it's mostly the wetland and then some adjacent upland resource area that's on the lot, because the lot doesn't extend all the way back to Berlin Road, which we talked about. It's just, you know. So, again, and then kind of included restrictions that are normal in like a conservation restriction, which is originally how it had come up. We had talked about the conservation restriction originally. So, and then it would just, again, be signed by the chair and signed by him. The only thing is, because it's a little bit different, I did wonder whether or not we should have town council look at it and just make sure the form is still fine.
Take a quick.
Yep.
Will it slow anything up for Mr. Pace?
Well, he had to just do it before occupancy, so they haven't started construction yet, so I
No,
think we have
but-
time.
No, but one of the things is, that we are going to get a building permit, okay, I know that won't restrict that, but we have somebody looking at that lot, we have two people looking at that lot for Friday, okay, and I'm not, what I don't want to do is misrepresent something, so what I'd like to do is have...
Try to get it
at least a-
done.
Yeah, at least a draft of it.
Yeah.
Okay, whether it's recorded or not, at least I can show something.
Well, I think you could show them that, because I think
Yeah.
it's not going to be that different from it,
Yeah.
if it's at all different. And it really would just be the legal format of the signatures and stuff like that. That's all I was wondering about.
I left the envelope at my attorney's office, I knew I did, but then I, okay, I apologize. So, yeah.
So, yeah, we'll let our attorney take a peek at it as long as it...
Yeah, okay, it's gonna be a snow day tomorrow, okay?
Is that right?
Yeah, it's fine. Okay.
What a minute.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so then the other part of the discussion was that when I went out to do the inspection of the erosion controls, I found that the area of, that was being altered for the breakout slope for the septic system was in fact more wooded than field, and it had been represented that they were restoring it like for like, so that they were restoring it to field conditions where, and so I met last week with Bob Jr. and Matt Morrow in the field, and Matt, completely could see what the area was that the breakout slope was going to be in there, and he's going to put together a restoration plan, which would include, I think he was thinking it would include like white pine and red oak and some picnic, shagbark hickory I think was growing in there, and maybe some gray birch, so it's sort of a mix of things. And try to do more of the rough grade, so that it doesn't, we keep the soil that was there, and try to use that and the boulders and the rocks and everything that are in it. But he didn't, since then, he's been trying to get the numbers, and so he hasn't submitted that to us yet.
What he had said to me was that it was more that, and I don't want to put words in his mouth or yours, but that you were concerned about some trees that had come down years and years ago, okay, and there was some stumpage there. That's not the case.
Well, it's a combination, but there's a lot of, I think if you go there, like today I went back again because they want, the silt fence was finished. You can see where the first trench is, right in front, right at the stone wall. And so if you go 20 feet out from that, or around 20 feet is what your trenches, the distance are, and then that's the end, and then you start doing the breakout slope, you'll see that it's, what it is, I think it's, and I don't know what the commission was, when you did your site visit, but if you look, it goes all the way over to the other lot, to the other stone wall, that's the lot line, and that's still wooded, you can still see the trees standing there. There were some trees that were taken out when they did the forest clearing work.
Yeah.
That may be within that area too, because there's definitely some cut stumps that are there. And then there's some stuff that are sort of overturned.
Yeah, but I'm not even sure that wasn't done like years and years and years ago.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, so,
I mean, it was done within the last 5 years.
well, that's years and years.
Oh, okay, well, not really, but, I mean,
Yeah.
as far as, I mean, and it may have been within the last 3 years. I know that the assessors were dealing with it because it had been in a chapter land
Yeah.
originally.
Yeah.
And it was pretty recent. It could have been within the last 3 years or even 2 years. But anyway, so the long and the short of it is that the area that is being proposed for restoration isn't field as we had originally proposed. So I asked him to submit the cost associated with it, and I just wanted to talk to you guys about whether you're comfortable just having them submit an increased escrow, or whether you feel like it needs to be amended to include that.
I've been here 4 or 5 times for the same lot, okay? We were here last week, okay, we were going to vote on it, there wasn't a quorum.
But we're on Fry Road, you're talking about Berlin.
Okay, I've got them confused. Thank
You're a
you.
fixture.
I am a fixture, okay?
We like your company. We keep you
And
coming
I like
back.
your company, okay? Exxon likes it, I keep driving down here.
Well, I mean, the thing for the commission is that, you want to sell it, but say that work isn't completed, it needs to run with the land, and so if you have their escrow, is that sufficient for you to feel like you're going to cover it because we don't have the plan submitted, it hasn't been submitted?
If we had a higher escrow, I'd feel comfortable, and maybe just sign something saying this is not part of the order, but I'm putting in a higher escrow, just so that he can get going.
That's fine. What's the escrow now?
I don't know.
It was
Okay.
really low because
Yeah.
it was just boulders.
Yeah. What was it, $500,000, something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, we're talking about saplings, we're not talking about, decorative trees and, I really want to get this done, so, I mean.
Well, I would just say, we're talking of substantial trees that are being cut in the Aura, which we didn't know. We were told it was field.
But,
So the resource area is different than what it was portrayed as.
respectfully, the ones that are down were already down long before I bought the property.
Yeah, I think the majority are still standing in that area.
I'm not sure how many, if any, are going to come down, and that's really the issue.
Well, we can prolong it because I have the photographs.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, if people need to do another site visit. But I did meet with Matt and Bob
Yeah.
on Thursday. This is sort of the pictures I'm talking about.
So this has just been cut down recently, you're saying?
Yeah, but let me see if I can just point it out. If
We
you
haven't-
look,
I'm sorry, but we haven't cut a tree.
Okay.
so here's the stone wall, and it's not that clear. I mean, you can see trees standing all through here.
Yeah.
So those are the trees that are coming out. And you
Okay,
can see that there were trees that have been cut there.
Right.
And
I knew you haven't cut a tree, but you're buying it from somebody who cut the tree, so.
Yeah, okay.
When were the before pictures taken?
Here, I have another picture on my camera that might be better than it
Can
today.
you see that one too? Where are we talking about? These two trees?
No, the ones in the back along the wall, I think is what Carol pointed to. Is that correct, Carol?
Let's see if this is any
What's the
better
time
today.
differential between those before and after?
No, there's no before and after, because I didn't have pictures.
There's no before.
They haven't cleared the ones for their lot yet.
I don't want to argue, but I really don't. But, I mean, this is looking toward that, is that correct, Carol?
Yes.
And this is where the silt fence is as well, and,
I think you have at least a half a dozen or more that are standing now, and probably anywhere between
do you have the septic plan with the right inches?
6 to 8 inches in diameter. And the ones that were cut, some of them were much bigger, more like 15 to 20.
I'm sure they harvested those. And then sold them. Yeah, let's put that. So, if you go to the wall right here where this is, so it's a scale here, it's a 20 scale, it's about 10 feet off of here to here. And I just want to understand it, I'm not arguing, I just want to
Yeah, the
understand.
picture's not very clear, it's not easy to see that there.
And I'm assuming that, that's the limit right there. And, we're talking about going right in here, and
Oops, let me see.
and it looks like the trees...
No,
right
so
up
this
there.
is looking down.
Yeah,
This is
down
looking
this way.
down here,
Oh,
because I'm in front of the silt fence, looking that way. These pictures up here are looking back up.
oh, okay, you're not
To the
seeing
wall.
it here going this way.
In this picture, I was looking here, I was just taking a picture of the erosion control that wasn't in place yet. And these two pictures on the top are looking back up towards where the septic's gonna go.
I think I'm still confused. I don't want to waste a lot of your time, but because aren't you standing here looking that way? Like that?
I'm standing here looking this way.
Yeah, but the siltation fence goes that way, so it's got to be going that way.
Oh, I'm looking across.
Yeah,
looking across.
okay, so that's what I'm saying.
But so, this area, it's not just these two, I'm looking at us up in here, all of this is coming out, and all of these trees. So you got like 1, 2, 3, 4, probably more that you just can't see it.
Even if you just replace the ones you are taking down.
Yeah, but I don't think, yeah, I'd be happy to do that, happy, okay? Just not, I'm just telling you that again, I'm not, they come here every week, I never push back. I just think that there's not that many here. I think that's the area that the septic, I think that tree will go, and I think that's all it's probably gonna go. Okay, 'cause
I
remember,
think if
the
you guys had
septic's
seen
not
the
going-
site before and realized how many had been cut and were being cut, you would have treated it completely differently. You would have required
suspect you're
full
right.
restoration, and so I just think that where they've, it was misrepresented, you should get the full replacement.
Well, we did do a
Not
site
necessarily
walk down
just
here.
the,
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I was out there, I mean, Bob, you were there as well, I think. I don't, I'll be honest with you, Carol, I don't remember.
I don't either.
you were looking at a whole bunch of stuff
I was
probably.
more drawn to all the junk in the pond.
No, you're on the wrong site.
place.
Oh, did
Fire
I,
Road.
Yeah.
did I didn't
Across
go
the street.
Fire Road?
No,
You go to
wrong
Fire
place.
Road,
Yeah,
and then
this
I'm
is
the
all right,
only,
all
you go to
right.
Fire Road?
I didn't go to Fire
I
Road.
did drive by
May you-
Fire Road, but I was not
May
in
I-
our official
Yes, I
walk.
was there.
May I
I was
do
there,
exactly
but I
what
was
you
only there
said?
once.
May I add $1,000 to put some trees in here?
I don't know
Well,
if 1,000
no, I
is
think
enough.
what you need
That's
to
the
do is you
problem.
need to get the proposal from Matt. He's working on it now.
Yeah.
And have it submitted and do your typical escrow. And
Based upon that,
your planting requirements,
Yeah.
your typical 3 times. I think, and my question really was for you, is whether you think you need to amend the order to include it or not. And Bob, you said you didn't think you needed to. And the question is that going to run with the property then? If you're going to have the money, it sort of does,
Yeah.
but it doesn't run with it,
I think Bob could sign something just ahead of time and saying that he's willing to do this after the fact and then abide by it. But whatever that proposal comes in at, and I'd be fine with that.
I'd be willing to do that.
So we just have to wait, we don't know what it's gonna be because we don't have the proposal. is what
Right,
Carol
and,
said.
I mean, maybe when we get it, we can go out and just check it out. Individually, that's all right.
No, it's fine, okay, I mean, one of the things we are gonna do, just so you know, kind of different than what we've done in the past, we're gonna go put the foundation and do all the dirt work. So the dirt work will be done, the septic will be in, and then we're gonna build the house. So it's a little different than we've done in the past.
So I guess I didn't see this lot. Because the one we went to was by the pond.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah, so
the
the
other
Venus
one.
property.
And that one hasn't started, or has started?
We have to,
No,
we have to, the orders, we have to sign off on the order conditions. Issue the order.
so is that something you want me to sign tonight, or is me saying that fine?
I think Carol could
Oh,
write
there's nothing
something up and
drafted.
send it
No,
out
I
to
think,
you.
or he can write it, and his attorney can write it.
You can write
I
it,
don't-
just
I
send
don't-
it to us.
Okay, what would you like to say? Okay, before I just write something you don't like.
I would, do we want to include that, the new planting plan? with
Yeah.
that? So as soon as you hear from Matt,
Yeah.
and he has the planting plan,
Mm-hmm.
I would just attach a note to that saying that this is planting plan, this is what, this is what we're gonna plant, this is what it costs. We'll adjust the escrow accordingly.
Okay,
It's as
Right.
simple as you need to go.
and, okay, will that be done in another meeting, or is that just
No,
done?
No.
I don't think we need to have a meeting.
I think you just need to send us something saying that you're gonna agree to.
Well, I think you want to
the
see
new
the
escrow
cost too,
plan.
Yeah,
because,
yes,
sometimes
absolutely.
you get those that aren't satisfactory. I mean,
Right,
we've had some that have.
absolutely.
Right.
So, get the planting plan, write a note saying this is what we plan to do, we can review it, over coffee, and give Carol some feedback on whether we think it's a substantial or correct. And then if it isn't, then I guess we'll have some conversation, but, if it is, then we can
Yeah, I'm happy to go out with you when we get it, anybody who wants to do a site
Okay.
visit to see.
do an
you
informal
know.
site visit.
Yeah.
Because I'm having trouble visualizing it. But if Matt understands it, then I'm sure he can communicate that to us.
The only other thing he was looking to get input was natural heritage, because,
Right.
again, he had submitted the same information to
Heard back
them.
from them.
Well, we have,
Right.
but again, he presented the same information to them. So he was restoring field, and we're not restoring field. So he just wanted to let them know what he's now going to be proposing.
Okay.
And
Does he,
he told me he sent them an email today, but he hadn't heard back.
all right. Hopefully it won't change anything with them.
No. Again, we're talking about a couple thousand feet. You know, I mean, we're not
Right.
talking about it on a 80,000 foot lot, which goes into things, nothing.
Okay, so are we clear on the restoration and the deed restriction, Carol?
Mhm.
You guys?
It's fine, yeah.
All right?
What does that mean in as far as getting my building permit at this point?
I don't know.
As
Well,
that's
I
good
just
now.
went out today to see the erosion controls, because that was the third trip.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I think, do we have, I think I got the orders of conditions recorded today.
Yeah,
I got that information.
Yeah.
So, you know, if everybody's comfortable when we get the, I guess, it's up to you. Do you want to get the restoration plan and get all that information in before?
No, if he agrees to, just send us something in
Yeah.
writing.
Yes, sir.
That he agrees that that's going to be added on.
Right, and so you're fine with doing that before we issue the building permit?
Yes.
I mean, you're fine with issuing the building permit
Yes.
before we get any of that?
As long as there's something in writing that says that he agrees to...
Okay, so get
to
something
those
from him in
conditions.
writing first?
Right, that's
Okay.
all. I'll write a little letter to us, just
No,
saying.
I'll do it tonight, I'll do an
Okay.
email on the way home.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Carol's typing.
And you can start tomorrow.
Maybe.
I heard it's snow today.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so you want to go back?
Yeah,
to
we're
the
gonna go
first
back
one?
to issue the order conditions. I think we have a quorum to do that, because I looked at, you all marvelous on YouTube. So I think we can, I think it was been reviewed ad nauseam, and I think we're good to go on issuing that.
So you need a motion?
Yeah, so I'm gonna make a motion to issue the order conditions for Pace at 401 Berlin Road.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Was this order under the bylaw or both?
It's both.
Who's that lady at the end of the table?
It's Farmer Stevenson. Did you have good seats? Quick. Quick. It's always the same, it seems to be quick.
Madam Chairwoman, would you like to sign
It's a lot
first?
going
Bill?
through it. Sure, got a pen?
You want to wait 10 days to record those, right?
10 business days. Yeah.
That's your signature?
Well, it is
Last
for
week.
tonight. so. You can pass it down, I'll get it on the way back.
Oh, sorry.
Usually it's not that neat.
What, do you have an attorney?
No.
He just plays one on that.
Where is Bolton Conservation?
Come on in,
The trust or the commission?
either way, trust or commission?
The Conservation Trust?
Yes,
Okay, they're upstairs if you go through the door.
right through here?
Yeah.
Yes,
Right there.
Is stairway there?
What's that?
Is the stairway there?
Yeah.
yes, that's how you get
It was like,
upstairs.
these people were crazy.
I decided-
So I think.
All right, so one needs to come back to me still. Does somebody have it?
Oops, sorry.
Everyone signs it?
Mercy. We're done.
Okay.
Do I get a copy of that now, or? do you-
No, it's just a draft. They just signed it.
Oh, I see.
Voted, discussed last meeting.
Okay,
So I'll have to finish it, you know,
Okay.
get it into order.
all right, thank you. guys.
All right,
Thanks,
nice to see you.
I can email you the draft if you need it, but
No, no, I just, like,
it's what we talked about at the last
yeah,
meeting.
no, I'm very bad at paperwork, as you saw, I forgot to.
So what should we talk about next? Do we want to,
Well, Jim's not staying, right?
Not even limited.
Yeah. So we needed him for the quorum for that project.
okay, and.
And then we have a quorum without him, so.
Okay, so you're excused.
Not feeling well.
No. Drag them in.
Snow day early.
Normally we have snow days on Tuesdays.
Normally.
Well, I'm gonna get a fedora and a flu shot.
Good combination.
That's good.
Night, Jim. So do we want to bring
Well,
up CME or?
Yeah, I didn't have them scheduled for a time. We had a little bit of email communication today with a lot of bounce backs. So,
That's for sure.
I didn't know they were coming, but if you want to take them, I am expecting,
Yeah, they're paying Brandon by the hour, so we'll take them right away.
yeah.
Thank you.
We know you don't get paid by the hour.
No, actually, just to recollect where we are. We were here 2 meetings ago and had received tentative approval to move forward with the crossing, subject to final review by Carol of the specs and comments on the specs. The narrative, thank you. After some back and forth, the final specs were generated last week. Carol, I know, circulated it to the committee along with the rest of the stuff at tonight's meeting. And frankly, we just wanted to come in just to try to get everything finalized. So that if there were any, I had heard that there were no comments from the members, but we wanted to also check.
Well, I hadn't received anything yet.
Right, and I wanted to just make sure that everybody's, any comments everybody has, that we can address them and get this thing finalized, so we can get this thing moving forward.
Did you review everything, Carol?
Yes,
Do you have any comments?
yes.
Okay.
Let's start with you then.
All right. So, well, I guess the first thing that I had noted when I sent it out was that I highlighted in yellow everything that was added since the last rendition or revision. And then I highlighted in purple just dates that I wasn't sure had been updated or whether they needed to be reviewed again. So those were sort of the initial, that's what it looked like when I sent it out. And then in red was text that either I had questions still about or had recommendations to modify. So that, do you want to start with the comments, I guess, then, and go back to the dates? Or, I don't know if, did anybody else have comments they wanted to add before we did it?
How about we start with the comments and go through this?
Well, I thought, why don't we just go through it page by page, and as things come up, we can talk about it.
Okay.
So let's start at the top and work our way through. So, I don't have a copy, so.
I didn't make extra copies either.
Well, just talk us through it then. I'll look at the
I think I have a very, very small copy here.
Well, so Andy had drafted this, so do you want me to go through it, Andy, or did you want to walk them through it?
I can walk, if you want, I can do it
Walk us
either
through
way.
And then I'll just come, when we get to my comments, I can add them?
Yep.
I don't have a small copy.
Okay, this is the construction schedule and sequencing narrative. General description of the work to be done is to continue construction of Old Stone Circle, which is also called Road C, from station 450, which means we've already built the first 450 feet to the end of the cul-de-sac, which is station 1900. So the total road is 1900 feet. 450 feet have already been built. Okay, the first four items are more administrative and don't have to do with construction. First, surveying and staking, that's been completed. That's in anticipation of the site walk that we do with Carol. The erosion controls have been installed. We've put in the boundary markers, although I think we need some more, Carol, if you have any more of those.
Okay, I'll make a note of that.
Thank you. We have taken photos of the crossing, of the wetland itself, which is approximately 12 feet wide. Okay, so then, again, these are just administrative things. Conduct the site meeting to review the erosion control measures, We've suggested some stockpiling locations, some lots to be used for stockpiling. We have lot numbers. Review plans to save significant trees. Carol asked to know what type of equipment we would be using, and that's listed as skid steer, which cuts trees down, excavator, crane. These are separate pieces.
Right.
Excavator, a crane, bulldozer, truck, loader, chainsaws, pumps. Temporary best management practices specific to winter work is limiting work that can be done daily as opposed to typically, you might open up when it's not winter time, you might open up a half a mile of work. And during the winter, you don't do that. Or just with a certain type of work. Carol asked to have temporary stabilization of ore slopes after tree cutting using jute netting. The jute netting is new. Temporary stabilization using wood chips, which we discussed previously on slopes that are less than 3:1, or greater than 3:1, excuse me. Temporary stabilization using erosion blankets on slopes greater than 2:1. Does everybody know what that means, 2:1, 3:1? 3:1 you can 3:1 and 2:1 you can mow, just to give you an idea. If it gets much steeper than that, it's pretty heavy. It's a little difficult. We are aware that we would have to, during the winter, for this snow removal, we would have to load it onto a truck and truck it away from the wetlands. You can't just push it into the wetlands. That's just a note. Discuss, again, these are all topics to be discussed at the sidewalk meeting. Discuss weekly when we're going to be meeting. Inspection schedule of crossing with wetland scientist and engineer. We get into that later, that he's going to actually be at that meeting.
So the on-site construction meetings are every week?
That's how we did the first phase, and that seemed to work really well.
Okay.
If something's wrong, you catch it before too much is...
Yeah, when they get all the road work and stabilization, and they're just working on the houses, unless the houses are in the resource area or buffer zone or whatever, then we didn't do the site inspections as frequently. They're still needed for a combination of things, just in case there's erosion that occurs in big storms, or, other work has to be done on the, we found like there was some curb work that needed to be done, and then there was some erosion that happened in the first phase that, we weren't really aware that it was happening, so.
Right.
I don't think they need to be weekly at that point generally, but we still need some periodic ones.
Submit final construction drop drawings for the retaining wall and arch culvert. That was done about a month ago. Drawings to be reviewed by planning board engineer. And Fred says he's going to be done on Thursday. That's Fred Hanley.
The town's engineer.
Town engineer. We are going to have a meeting with Oxbow, who is a rare species expert, with people that are going to be working at this site so that they're educated on what to do if they encounter one. And we will also discuss with our site people, although they're all familiar already, that they can't just go into a lot and dig wherever they feel like it, because we have septic systems and you'd ruin a potential septic field. So that's all administrative. It has nothing to do with really commencing the work. I'm actually not even done with the administrative. Next administrative thing would be to, once we have the site meeting and everything, is to provide the bond to the Concom prior to commencing work. It's $139,500. Okay, so the next thing, those are all administrative. Next, I'm going to talk about actually how we're going to conduct the work.
Can we just also make sure that they're comfortable with the note that the work's being permitted outside the original time period, and if the commission feels anything?
We added a note to the construction sequence and schedule that says this work is being permitted outside the time period originally approved because of frozen ground conditions and a low water table. If conditions change that make the construction work unsuitable, the Bolton Conservation Commission will require the work to stop and the site to be stabilized until they find the conditions suitable to recommence activity.
That's critical for us.
Okay, so, then we go to number 5, and this number 5, and what we're going to talk about strictly relates to the wetland crossing, which is about it's 12 feet, but the wetland area, not the wetland area technically, wetland area, but obviously it's a bigger area, but the wetland itself is.
Okay, so before you go on, so my comment had been wetland area and aura with the wetland crossing.
That's why it's not in here.
Well, but number 15 in 5 talks about wetland replication and aura restoration. So my understanding of what you were doing here was talking about the wetland crossing and the aura area directly adjacent to the crossing.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's why I suggested it be both wetland area and aura associated with a wetland crossing. Because you did have some stuff in about the aura there, and then I just added back in the aura
Well,
protocol sheet.
I guess I'm just referencing this general location as opposed to the auras elsewhere.
Yeah, so that's why I said, so my suggestion was
As
to add
opposed to the auras.
wetland crossing and or associated with wetland crossing.
Okay.
Okay,
Or,
that's in my note there, you should have that already.
yeah. Okay. So, the first thing we would do is per the wetland protocol, which is a narrative that's contained in, and there's drawings too, it's contained in our subdivision plans, the first thing we would do is go remove and store down trees and logs as we're supposed to for reuse later in the areas that they're supposed to be placed.
So, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I guess, can I just ask you, since we're expecting to get more snow again and maybe more snow again, like, so logistically, like, how are we gonna know it's down? I mean, how do you do it? You have pictures before the snow?
Mhm.
So you're gonna go in and sort of say, like, we know in this area there were some down logs that we wanna retrieve?
Yeah, I mean, the snow, obviously it snows and then it melts and you can see, but
Yeah, I just didn't know if it's gonna melt now for a little bit, I don't know, it sounded like, so I just wanted to know logistically. And maybe, if you have the pictures too, it would be good for us to get copies of those then,
Okay.
showing it with the bear, so we can compare, see that we feel like we got what we
It's been
wanted.
a cold, it hasn't been that snowy yet, but it's been pretty cold.
It's been
Nothing's
snowy and
melted.
Well, and it has melted, I mean, so there's, in the woods, depending on the slope that you're on, you get a lot more melt in certain places than you do in other places.
The glacier's only up to Pac-Monadnock now, so you don't have to worry yet. Getting close.
Can I just ask one question? I'm sorry to backtrack, but we say this, you don't start the crossing work until the slopes are suitably stabilized. Do we, this is in 5, do we know what suitably stabilized, I mean, have you, is that
No.
described anywhere?
It's unrelated. Number 5 says the construction sequence and schedule number 5 is
Yes.
the construction sequence and schedule for the crossing only.
Okay.
Back and
Oh,
forth
unrelated,
travel,
there's a-
unrelated
Gotcha,
to
sorry.
the construction of the crossing is not to
Occur
occur
until the
until the
road's
road
in place.
base is in place at the crossing.
Okay,
So,
good. I have
do
to
we have a
look on
plan
that.
of this? Must have. In
Yeah,
other
I
words,
didn't bring
in
my list.
general,
I get your point.
this is the area, this is the road we're talking about here. The crossing, the wetland is here, 12 feet wide. We've already built the road to here. So what that is saying is that we're not going to have back and forth travel to build this
Right,
until
until
the
that.
road base is in
Perfect.
on the crossing.
That's really good.
Okay? Okay, so after so the first thing we would do is go in and pick up the snags and the down trees and put them someplace in a staging area, so that later on, when we do the restoration and the replication, restoration is aura, and replication is wetland, we would be able to use them again to help create a natural-looking
Habitat.
habitat. Thank you.
It's not just the look, it's the whole effect.
I did. Okay, then we're planning to cut trees, cut all trees that are required, but leave the stumps temporarily to keep the ground. That's everywhere, including in the wetland, in the road, on the aura, everywhere. We would just cut the trees and remove them, so that we can keep disturbance minimalized until till we have a firm delivery date for the culvert. At the crossing, which is 12 feet wide, if you
How wide is that crossing?
can. Well, this is let's say the wetland here.
Yes.
There's a culvert that is going to go like this over it, and it has to be made. So as soon as Fred finishes reviewing the plans, we're going to order it. So we propose starting tree cutting, but we're not actually going to stump them, because once you start pulling out stumps, then you're loosening up dirt. So we would have the tree cutters go in and cut the trees, leave all the stumps everywhere, and then continue further down.
Do you have any idea how long, once you give them the go-ahead, it takes to do the...
3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Wait, 3 weeks to build it? Is that what the
To get the
question
form.
So
was?
it's not build, they form
Well,
it, it's concrete, isn't it?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's
Steel reinforced, rebar or something, that puts you in?
yeah, it's
So you don't, it's usually made pretty close by because it's so heavy, the truck, is it?
yeah, they actually, this is, it's 12 feet, 50 feet wide.
Open
Yes.
bottom?
What?
Is it
Yeah.
open bottom?
Open bottom.
Yeah.
It's just half circle?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
With
it's the
footings.
width of an entire street, so it's like a tunnel.
Right,
It's a big thing.
right. So you bring a big crane and to lay in place.
It comes in section, I mean, it comes
Oh,
in
it comes in
pieces.
sections,
Oh,
okay.
yeah, you could,
Couldn't get it done.
yeah. no.
But it's made locally, isn't it, pretty close by? Most of the concrete places are pretty close by that you use.
We're using one that's actually, they're about 45 minutes away.
That's pretty close by. Where is it?
I forget the town they're in. Lamar Concrete, I think is what we're gonna use. So,
Right in New Hampshire.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have anything else in town there? I could tell you
I
if you
think it's
need.
Brookline. It doesn't, it's...
You have to pay sales tax when you bring it across the line?
Yeah.
During the day, that is.
Okay, so we're gonna, tree cutting and removal will be done now, not just of the roadway area, but also of the aura areas and the slopes and so forth.
Yeah.
Because when you're down trees, you know, they're big trees, we don't want to be building the bridge, so to speak, and then be cutting trees later.
Right.
So we're going to do all the tree cutting at the same time. Then, once we know the culvert is on its way, we will pull the stumps in the roadway, but we will leave them unpulled on the slopes that we were talking about, that we were worried about.
Yeah, I think we had some conversation, I'm not sure we have it captured in here. Oh, wait. If the equipment taking the trees, just cutting the trees disturbed the soil enough for the ground, we wanted to have something down, whether it was jute netting or the straw or the chips or something, right? Okay.
Yep. Well, yeah, if there's any,
I mean, it says it down at under 5, concrete
Yeah.
approved slopes stabilized after tree cutting using erosion blankets, so I guess that is there, sorry. What was the intentionally blank one? We haven't quite got to that
I
one.
had the numbers, there was a numbering issue, so instead of changing all the numbers,
Okay.
in case you were referencing an old one, I just,
Okay.
But the previous one didn't have the numbers in the right order.
I just didn't know if you had something else we were waiting to put in it.
No. Okay, so, grubbing and stumping of the areas, grubbing and stumping of areas where current stabilization, where we're concerned about maintaining it, that will be done later. In other words, pulling the stumps on the slope where the aura restoration's gonna be, and so forth. That area that we talked about, the trees will be cut, but not the stumps removed, so it should stay pretty much in the condition it's in.
Yeah, and so I just added in the comment, that, again, at the end of each day, it should be evaluated, and if it needs to be, have either blankets or whatever put down, then it should, they should make sure that that's done before they leave.
Do you want me to change something that's written here?
Well, I'd like you to include my comments.
I did include all your comments from the first draft.
Yes, but these came up afterwards.
I have a question. If
There's not a whole lot, I mean, you've got it all in red, so it's not,
If you're going to stabilize everything at the end of the day, if need be, that means you have to have a supply of the netting, the chips, and the blankets
Right.
at site.
Correct.
Is that in there, that they're going to keep a supply there?
no. I don't
Do we
believe
need
it
to
is.
say that? Because if we know how to build. I mean, we know that we need to have the stuff there.
They usually have some straw bales available and silt fence available, and I can't remember if that's in the original order or not.
Yeah.
And we do often talk about that requirement at the site visit and so forth, but, there's a few things to add, so I don't think it's that,
No.
not difficult to add it,
Okay.
which is have extra,
I'm just
have
worried
it
in case something
available on
goes
site.
wrong,
Yeah,
and you're not prepared for it.
yeah.
You're like,
Well, that-
Andy, like the Titanic.
I know. but
The unsinkable
we've
ship,
written
remember
here-
that?
It says it here 100 times that we have to keep it stabilized. I mean, at some point, that's what it means. I think, but I'll add it.
Yeah, because if you leave and somebody else has to do it, we want them to know.
Don't suspend her.
I just want if something happens that day, that
Yeah,
you'll have the
it's
equipment,
there.
so it doesn't overnight go into the wetlands, that's all.
Yeah.
You're going to need it anyway, so.
You can use that intentionally blank space.
Oops.
Okay. Access to be one direction only, continuing to the north side without traversing until culvert crossing is in place. Should that say north side access? Or should it say from north side?
What number are you on?
Access to be one direction
Where's
only, continuing to, should say south side.
This is the south side?
Yeah.
What number are you on? Sorry.
Still on two.
Number two, I don't know if that
Number,
was.
why are we, number 2, you going back up to the top?
No, it's number 5, and then there's a
Oh.
big
5-2,
number
sorry.
1, and then it's number, little 2, sub 2.
This is south.
South
what you're saying?
south is this way.
Which way is south?
South.
Can you show me?
And the crossing, but the crossing's over here.
Okay, I can't find it.
Isn't it more east?
Right here.
Well,
You
the road
go-
runs generally
It's at the
north
bottom,
south.
last
so,
rows of
yeah,
that.
This is northerly.
Yeah, oh, so we're going back up.
We hadn't.
Oh, this is the north right this way?
Yes, we
Yeah.
have.
Thought
We
this
were
was
already
north
on
up here.
I think
5.
you got a little ahead of them.
I jumped to 5.
Generally northerly direction.
Moving right along.
What's that? We know,
Okay,
because the crossing's right here, and you're heading east at that point.
We'll still back up to you.
No,
Wait, no,
the crossing's over here.
this one it should be.
It doesn't.
That's fine, that's
So it says
fine.
the north,
You know
and that
what-
last line.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know if that was how you had it worded, and I just copied
I
what you
don't know.
wrote.
I
Does
don't
that mean
know.
once a machine goes over, it stays there until the crossing's complete?
It-
Is that what it means, Carol?
That's, right, it's not going to keep coming back and forth.
Why don't you just
Right.
say continuing to the other side without traversing the culvert crossing?
Yeah. There we go.
I think it just needs to say south side. Continue to south
Okay.
side. There.
Okay, so you'll change that, Andy?
Yep.
Okay.
Trees north of crossing to be removed to the north, and trees south of crossing to be removed to the south.
Okay.
Just think that makes common sense instead of dragging them across the level.
Yep.
Right?
Mhm.
Okay, then number 3 is, as preferred by the board and discussed at the Concom meeting on January 7th, we will excavate to strip, remove, and store 12 inches of soil from the roadway only for reuse in a separate staging area. In other words, the next step after cutting the trees is we're gonna take this dirt only and just put it someplace. We're not going to go over to the ore areas over here or where there are slopes and do that yet, because that would destabilize those areas. Number 4 was intentionally blank. Number 5 is, other grading outside confines of wall will be done when wall is low and near existing grades and with Concom's approval. Slopes stabilized after tree cutting, slopes stabilized after tree cutting using erosion blankets.
Yeah, and that's where I had added the note, at the end of each day. Yeah. You have that.
I know.
Okay,
I'm just
that's fine.
the area under the arch culvert disturbed as little as possible to preserve natural character, effort and attention being made to limit excavation to the footings of the arch culvert. So basically what we're talking about is, this is the road and the culvert is from, let's say, here to here, like that. We're going to try not to disturb that area. I'll just dig the footing here, footing there, and then we'll place it. That's what I'm trying to do. Okay.
Is that a poured footing?
No.
Those are precast footings that you just put down with a crane or something? And how are they attached?
Well, they're still, yeah, I'd have to look at the plan, but they're, this is, they're 4 feet down.
Yeah? So you dig the hole first?
Right. And then they, again, it's 50 feet long this way. This is a big footing.
Yeah?
It's not that the culvert is that big, like, as far as from top to bottom, but it's the width of a whole road.
Yeah.
So it comes in sections.
From New Hampshire.
And then we added mats. Carol asked to have mats will be used in the road
August.
wetland crossing to protect
Yes.
the bed from equipment. And equipment trips will be limited.
Do we have any specifications for the mats?
No, I think when you were here before, we talked about,
This was afterwards that I brought it up.
I know, but you did bring it up during that, or I think you had been at the meeting when we were talking about the crossing and...
But then I did the research afterwards,
Oh,
and I wrote to you. Because it was a discussion that Janet said about that most of the stuff she found was just for logging,
right,
and then that's when I did the research.
yeah. Well, what do they typically use for mats? They're just, they're in sections, and it's like, I don't know, is it,
Hopefully it's going to be frozen.
Yeah,
So
we still want the mats even if it's frozen, but I just didn't know the size of the equipment and how thick the mat should be.
Oh,
Or if there's
yeah.
any specifications for it. In other words, I would believe, this is just thinking about it, I'm not familiar, that the larger the equipment that goes across, the thicker the mat needs to be to protect the wetland.
right, because you were the one who sort of had asked about using the lightest equipment,
Yeah.
But you sort of said you have what you have. So
I can't
I
really,
guess-
you need heavy equipment to move.
Well, it's different degrees of heavy equipment.
These are, we're building a bridge, so
Yeah.
you need significantly large, excavators.
Okay.
Equipment to lift this.
So that's why I wanted to know what the specifications were for the mats, because they come in different, I would gather, I didn't research it, but I would gather they come in different thicknesses, and I don't know if they come in different materials, made for different purposes.
Something that'll hold up to it.
Yeah, big excavator, that's all I want.
It's
is
basically
some-
what they, I mean,
But I've seen different ones out in the field,
Yeah.
but I just don't know any specifications.
So do you want to change it so,
Yeah, I mean, you could use steel plate, I mean, you could use wood, I mean, that's what
Do you
a
wanna
lot
s-
of them are.
do you want to say mats will be, thickness of mats will be sized, you know,
Appropriately to the
for
equipment, yeah.
something
That's
like
good
that?
enough. Then they can use their judgment. I don't know what the mats are made of, because when I did my research, it just said mats, and it had pictures of them. None of them looked out of wood, and none of them looked out of steel. It was some sort of fabric is what it looked like. Rubber.
I was gonna say, the other ones are like blasting mats, which are like.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was trying to-
I only could tell from the pictures,
It's like.
and the pictures weren't,
Tire
high
chunks
quality.
that
Yeah, that could be made out of some sort of rubber
rod
matting.
Together, yeah, that's.
But as the cleats go over, they're not going to dig up the bed of the wetland. And they won't, also it keeps it from compressing everything down. There's a lot of information out there if you look for it
Yeah.
on wetland crossing in the winter.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
You were probably watching the Super Bowl instead.
I put down steel or blasting mats.
I just don't know. I can't tell you.
Well, why don't we just
I don't
say
think steel would be
steel-
good.
I would just say mats will be sized to accommodate the equipment and used in the road wetland crossing.
Right. But I'm just saying, the ones that I saw in all the pictures that were given by the different groups as best practices look like either fabric or rubber or something like that.
Yeah, I've only seen the rubber ones. I
I
mean,
can't
we've
imagine
used,
fabric, probably rubber.
yeah.
Yeah. Because the pictures had different size equipment on different projects.
I don't want to disturb this party, but we have any orders
Yeah.
that,
So we should just move this quickly if we can.
Okay.
yeah, or, you know, we can
Can we-
stop, we can let,
I mean, I'm happy to stop.
and you can come
Correct.
back, you know, come back after, or
I'm happy to do that, because we've got,
we've got a few pages.
Okay.
So-
we want to get going.
Okay.
I mean, we want to
Yeah.
start the work, because we want to do it in the winter.
Yeah.
It's still winter. All right, so, let's, you guys take a break.
Okay, how long do you think it'll be? Rough ideas?
Yeah, 20, 15, 20
Okay.
minutes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, small.
How do you know I smoke?
You don't smoke, get too smart for that. Come on, you're too smart.
Okay.
All this hard work you
I didn't know
want,
what to do.
Coke
Yeah.
and chili.
all this hard work you won't get to
Is
enjoy
there a soda
it.
machine?
I was just gonna recommend that they just send a letter and say, you know, we need to be able to see the erosion, I mean, the rip it up and blah, blah, blah. So if you wanna say that we can postpone it. You want us to send them a letter, no, just technically it goes back.
Sometimes we have this on the air, and no one says.
Okay.
So just to sort of grab on that one.
Well, and to know about whether anything has to be done on the sediment for ban,
Yeah,
and I'd like the erosion control on the back.
yeah. All right, next is on Harold, village trees.
You're going to?
We did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so I thought.
Okay.
Just issue the letter.
It's my swan song.
Yeah, let's see when this ends, what our
Yeah.
frame of mind is.
10 years. Very decade.
It's been 10 years? What'd you term it? When? Did you really? Before I got here? I gotta stay home.
I think the next commissioner, next chair.
Did you really?
She did, she came in the office, I sent her an email to say I'll meet her here. She came to the office.
Oh,
Sorry.
well, you'll be missed.
Yeah, well, I'll catch you on YouTube.
But you did put in 10 years of service, which is commendable.
That's
Only
not,
next to
it's
Laurie,
not
I
the
think.
max that you can though.
Yeah. Go another 10.
Laurie started on the Tuesdays when there were half days in elementary school. She She used to come in on a short days. What year did you start?
Don't give me a lot.
Can't remember that far back.
Okay, so.
I'm getting to be the old timer very quickly.
Yeah.
Maria and me. I think mine's 3 or 4 years.
Time flies. Maybe I'll come back.
You guys ready?
Yeah. Hi.
Hello.
How's everybody?
Good, how are you?
I'm Sue Carter from Places Associates. I'm the project engineer on the Sugar Road project. And you look familiar. I think have you been?
I've been here for a while.
Okay. You know, it's funny, driving here tonight, I realized that this project lasted longer than my marriage did. Because I started this project before I met my ex-husband. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's been a long time.
It's
the way
My kids are grown and gone, you know?
Well, I started working on the Concom when this was just wrapping up with the meetings.
It's been a long
So
time.
that's why I'm quitting.
Well, see, that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to make sure all that good work that you did is preserved and it's recognized, and it carries forth onto a new project.
I was on boards in Chelmsford for 22 years, and I always thought, well, when I finally get off planning board, I'll have all this free time. And it doesn't happen, you just fill up.
See, Amy? And you can't find anything to do on Tuesday night.
Anyway, so, let's discuss modifications to the plans and consider eliminating the Board of Commissioners.
Yes, so we had, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and Matt had gone through, I think, a reasonable history of the project, the 40B, for people that hadn't been involved in it. And the board wanted a little bit more information in terms of what may have occurred as part of the work within the other permit before. Sue's been involved in the project since prior to her old ex-husband, or
Actually,
and
even
so,
longer.
yeah, and so she can speak a little more specifically to that, and then if we can get a sense of where the board is at that point, and go forward. So this was the project that was approved. This is the project that secured, the order of conditions was secured on, which consisted of 42 single-family homes, 4 bedrooms, treatment center, wells, a whole kind of looping roadway system, the leach field in the center, and going, up to the 25-foot zone. I mean, we're going up to the 25-foot zone as well. Overall, our plan is less intensive. We've got 30 homes. Do you have that plan? Because I know everybody wasn't here.
This is the direct comparison one.
Okay, you see,
That makes like it's
side by- side by
easy
each.
to look
Did I
at.
have that?
We had the smaller ones. I think we might have.
Side by side,
This
oh,
looks familiar.
small ones, but with the
We had
with the
two-
full
we had
ones
two
you gave
big
me,
ones
did you
that
give?
were full.
Oh, because I had 3 pages and I only got to the top 2, and they were, so I
But
didn't
you
look at
missed
that
the
one.
best part
All
of
right.
the back.
All right.
Well, I have the other one.
Well, no, what I did, so I did a little light table on the windows and highlighted the
Yeah.
overlays, which I'll show you, because I think that's helpful too.
Okay, great. So this is a little more effective in showing old versus new. We've taken a different approach to the property. Instead of doing the centralized water and treatment, which both required a significant amount of infrastructure, and controlling it, we've broken it up into, which isn't depicted here, essentially 5 clusters of 6 homes, each kind of focusing on a small town green. We didn't have the pretty pictures last time, so. And then each of these clusters has its own septic system. And it has, we'll be utilizing one of the wells, and we're actually drilling a 5th well, I think that's over here, it's on a different plan. So what we've really tried to do is to open up the property, to the back area of the wetlands. Really, we kind of looked at it from a planning perspective of really kind of, getting these fingers of green space that are going, throughout the property into, these areas that the homes are focused on. making it a much more pedestrian-friendly property, keeping all the vehicles around the backside. And instead of, cutting off everything with the wetlands, as this did with the road going across, we really, kept that wide open. And that'll be available for, really for recreation for people. So this is a total of 30 homes here as compared to the 42. The structures that you're seeing, some of these are detached garages. So each home does have a two-car garage. Some are attached, some are detached, some are underneath. But we felt it is important for everybody to have that garaging, otherwise.
How big are these homes in square foot compared to the homes before?
These are about 1,900 square feet.
And the ones that were proposed before?
They were about 22, I think. I'd have to
So you're
look at-
saying that before you had more homes and they were larger?
And they were all four bedrooms too.
Four bedrooms.
There were
Okay.
four bedrooms, right?
Yes. So these homes, these are two versions of what we're doing, which I didn't have last time either. So they are aptly considered to be the kind of these short side homes, like here. This front porch that you're seeing is what's running across the front, and then kind of the longer ones that has this porch here
Yeah.
is that zone. The floor plans are both, they're pretty consistent. This reflects, the home with the front porch, this yellow one.
What were they, 2 bedroom, 2 baths?
Yeah, the 2 bedrooms, yeah. So we've done basically a master on the first floor and a master on the second floor with a small study. And then the living area is very open, very modern, kitchen, living, dining, lofted here. So these are about 1,900 square feet. Intended to be, a little bit more modest. The project itself, before with, 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath colonials, was really specifically targeted towards families. We're really working directly against that. This is targeted more towards, it's not an age-restricted property, but it's somewhat of an age-restricted advantage by design with a first-floor master and laundry. But, and these are intended to be more affordable for, singles, couples, the single moms, single dads that want to stay in town. It's just, it's a much more modest development, both price-wise, scale-wise, and we think impacts to the town, and we think specifically impacts to the wetlands. So,
Is there any reason you didn't do an age restricted?
yeah, I don't like it marketing-wise.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it cuts off some buyers?
What's that?
It cuts off some buyers?
It limits your market. And with the design that we have, it really isn't targeted towards, towards your traditional mom, dad, and 2 kids. It's just not an appropriate, it's not a home design that I think really works for them. But we think it works for a lot of other people, really. People, kind of starting out in the housing game, and people that are, kind of downsizing as well. And people that I've talked with locally, it's really, been a combination of people that have said, that's, would be a nice fit, because there isn't something like it. Pricing-wise, we're looking to have it to be targeted more like the price of a detached townhome, more modest. So, and we're able to do that by keeping the homes modest and by eliminating the really onerous infrastructure that was in there before. So, the treatment center, the community water supply were very expensive to put in, extremely expensive to operate. So by stripping those out is really what made the property viable. Without that, it just didn't make sense. And
Okay.
the 30 homes that's what works under that well and septic scenario. That's what drives it. So I'd love to say, hey, that's it, I think this was too dense and it wasn't an appealing site plan. But the 30 is based on Title V requirements and nitrogen loading and all that kind of fun stuff.
And this has been in front of the Board of Health already?
The Board of Health, we have done all the testing for the septic designs. We did them all this fall. They're all observed by the board.
Yeah.
All the systems, they work. We haven't filed with them. The reason we're seeking clarification from this board and requesting the board to consider what we're doing as an amendment to the existing order of conditions. One of the key components is that at least it gives us a basis of starting, that, the wetland line that's there, it's established, and, we've designed it to keep that 25-foot buffer that we know isn't.
So you're using the same wetland line that you used that they used in the last project?
Yeah, we're seeking to amend their order of conditions, which would include utilizing the line that they had.
Okay.
And then kind of working from that, all of our, necessary offsets and the relationships to wells and septics and,
But you haven't had that, you haven't gone out and seen if the line has changed at all?
Well, part of, the evaluation and with the submittal that we had made, Sue has spent a significant amount of time on the site. Her partner, Bill Murray, has spent a significant amount of time on the site while we've been evaluating it both for the septic, for grading, and just, involvement. We didn't do a specific going out, identifying the flags and putting them in the field, which, we assume we'll need to do. But based on, on the time that they've spent on the site and watching it over the past 6-7 years, they haven't seen any migration of the line. So they think that the line is still appropriate, yeah.
Are the flags still there from before?
There's pieces of the blue flagging here and there, but it's not consistently. We couldn't walk out in the field and tell you here's flag number B27 because there's still enough of a ribbon to read it. There's remnants. What we would anticipate is prior to construction, having the survey crew go out and mathematically replace where the flags were so that it's, when it comes time for the contractor to go on the site, it's clearly identified. So if somebody takes a wrong turn, they're going to know it's wetlands and to figure out what they're doing. Also, we need that so that we will be able to stake the 25-foot offset line. So we've reestablished the lines in that respect.
I thought the bylaw was 50, Carol. Were they under an exception?
Yes, you weren't at the meeting that we had before? Is that right? Okay. So this, because it's a comprehensive permit, they went to the zoning board and asked for certain waivers, and one of the waivers that they requested was the Bolton wetland bylaw.
Was this now, was this 10 years ago?
10 years ago.
Okay.
Or whenever the date was. But our order of conditions was issued in 2004.
2004.
And it's been extended, throughout.
Is it still under the extension?
Yes.
Till 2016.
Under
Under the
the
permit
current-
extension, that's under
current.
current, yeah.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, so it is in effect. And
It's in effect as this,
Correct.
Correct.
not as this.
Correct. And that's the purpose of, that's what the,
Okay.
the meeting a couple weeks ago and tonight is. So with, with the comprehensive permit, the general, the general standard, our compliance standard is the State Wetlands Protection Act, and then waivers can be requested to the local bylaw. And that's, what resulted in this plan.
Has anybody walked this since the last meeting?
No.
I like that, with snow, and that's part of
The way we talked about it at the meeting, I think, was Mark had thought Sue had been out there, and was going to, so she generated a letter that said, that they've,
the stuff they
Sent it
to us.
that,
Get this out of the way.
their staff had visited the site during the summer and fall of 2013. Based on their observations, it was their opinion that the limits of bordering vegetated wetland have not discernibly changed from the locations depicted on the Bolton Manor plans. Please note that this is based on field observations and not field survey measurements.
Yeah.
So, Janet had sort of asked, well, if we looked at it today and just seeing woody growth, not seeing the herbaceous layer, what would we see? And it was sort of felt, I think, that wouldn't be sufficient, to say one way or another. The other couple of things that we had talked about were, and we haven't touched on it yet exactly, but, what had occurred on the site, under the original permit. I mean,
Was
we
that
talked about a
land
couple of
cleared
those
at
things.
one time? Because I moved in town after that was, I've been in town 10 years.
This was an old farm, and
Yeah.
I remember working on this when it was open fields back, even like in the mid-'80s. And for a while, when the Bolton Fair was still down in the center of town, it was parking for the Bolton Fair, so it was regularly mowed.
Okay.
So it's open, and the herbaceous vegetation is slowly creeping in from the fringes and coming in. Back in 2000, and double check my timelines, 2007, I believe it was, when the Sweeneys went out, funny when you were talking to the applicant before us, we used, they drilled the wells in the middle of the winter. They used mats to have the well rig come out and drill the wells. At that point, it was getting very overgrown, and the edge of wetlands was actually within the shrub layer. And they had to obviously cut some of the vegetation, and then nature healed itself very quickly up there. So these wells were drilled in 2007, and what they did was they ran the water lines and the electrical lines back to a manhole outside of the wetlands so that it was accessible and they would never have to disturb the wetlands again and let nature heal itself and continue to heal itself.
Well, one thing that, in addition to that, we didn't just let it heal
Right.
itself. We
Right.
required them to restore it.
There were some
Did they?
plantings.
I had yeah.
Well, I know that they planted blueberry bushes
Blueberries,
because
yeah.
I was there when they were planting them, but there's been no follow-up in terms of restoration, success, I don't think. It sort of, again, came, well, I'd have to look back at our notes a little bit, but a little bit coincident with, we were only issuing short-term extension permits to get them to get that work done.
To do work.
And then after that, Mr. Sweeney got ill, and the family was trying to sell the project essentially. And so
Okay.
the only other thing that I was aware of that they did was that they stripped the loam
Yeah.
off of the site.
This front section up here.
Yeah, in the front section. And so I know Sue indicated that.
But that was out of the resource area, right?
Well, the access is in the resource area.
Well,
They
some of it
shouldn't
got
have been doing it,
removed.
but
Okay.
Yeah.
we didn't have a ton of jurisdiction. I think the planner was new at the time, and there wasn't anything.
And I think
that
they just went in and did it.
They had already done it, it was
Yeah.
gone, I think,
Yeah. Yeah.
Or we may not have even had a
They-
planner.
they-
I mean, so to be clarified, we had
Nothing.
nothing to do with any of it.
Yeah, bought it.
When our survey crew went out to do the wells, they had initially, they had to do a 24-hour pump test, so they had excavated off some of the topsoil for when they did the pump test to have a settling area for the discharge. And then at some point, it sort of expanded, and that's when they stripped the loam. I'm not sure about the timing of that. But I think the key thing in terms of the wetlands, this area was done in the winter. They planted, I went through all the emails, I'm such a pack rat. But it was back in August of 2008, we had an email from Scott Smarters over at Oxbow saying that Kevin was going to be attending the September 2nd Conservation Commission meeting, and that he was going to be raking out existing wheelwrights leading to the wetlands, seeding exposed soils with a wetland mix, planting 10 high-bush blueberries within the open paths, and then when the water receded, he was going to be hand raking and seeding the remaining wetlands work.
It says he was.
I know
Didn't say
that,
he did.
I know that he did
So I don't know what he did.
a lot of that. I don't remember the hand raking part, but I
Yeah.
remember the planting because the blueberry bushes had tons of blueberries on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I kept thinking, I'll go back.
Yeah, I remember the planting of the blueberries, but I know for a while we had some issues with the water level in the wetlands was too high for them to get access to the spots, and everyone agreed to try to do it when it was fully saturated soils was going to create more damage than it was going to solve. So I honestly don't remember if he went back and finally did the final hand raking, but as I look at it, that was in 2008. 6 years later, if he didn't get around to it, nature's probably healed itself in those areas.
I guess my concern right now, and it looks like a nice project, I'm not against the project anyway, is that this was done so long ago, and just in the 3.5 or 4 years I've been on the commission, on a lot of the projects we've gone out, and people have said, well, listen, it hasn't moved, and then we go and look at it, it has moved, because we went through a long drought here for a while in this area. So I would like to be able to go out and to do a site walk and see where the wetlands are at some point. And also because we're only under the 25-foot do not disturb, there's less margin for error than under the 50-foot do not disturb. So you're moving up pretty close to that line.
I guess what I'd like to say is that right now we have the valid order of conditions going, and that if you look under the Wetlands Protection Act, there are provisions to allow you to amend an order of conditions.
Yes.
And under those conditions are basically is that you're not increasing the amount of, the overall scope of the project isn't increasing, it's either decreasing or the same, and in this case, we clearly have a decrease in the number of units, that the actual impact to the wetlands isn't changing. I think if you look here, we have fewer houses directly abutting the wetlands, which I think that was, if you look back in time, that was the initial incentive for people to start putting in some of the setback requirements to houses, is recognizing that people creep. And that's, so I think that gives us a benefit. We don't have these houses in this
But
area.
you have the houses in this area
Right,
that you had
and here,
before.
the
so-
one thing that doesn't show here is that we had activities with the water tank. That was where the large water tank was.
That was all being exposed.
So we had a lot of fill and a big concrete structure. We also had soccer fields being built back here, so you're gonna have people going past here on a regular basis.
So can I show the overlay one? Because I think,
Oh, sure.
while you are saying some of that correctly, I do want to point out that there, there's, the roadway is
Yeah.
closer in some locations. There's significantly more roadway within the buffer than I think with the other project, but,
Yeah, we took percent. We've got the
you know,
maps on here too. We tried
and
to
I'm
give
not
an
saying
indication of-
percentage so much, but the proximity, as Bob was sort of mentioning, as well as what I didn't show on here, which I didn't pick up because there were multiple plans, but, detention and drainage is being shown over in here, detention and drainage is being shown over in here. You mentioned a well, I'm not sure if that's in the buffer zone. But so,
Yeah, where was
this,
the well, it would be, where would the well, the fifth well you drilled?
No, it's not ours.
well, yours is
You
underneath. too.
pointed over here, you
Yeah,
pointed over
it
here.
was basically off that driveway.
So is it on this side of the
I believe it was
buffer?
outside of the
I
buffer
think
zone.
it's outside the buffer.
So it's over here?
In here.
And I guess one question that I have is, along the lines, again, of amending an order. Typically, again, we've only amended orders when it's been a small amount of alteration that was changing, and it was less impact to the resource area. So while these buildings are coming out, these are still within, and including a new one that wasn't, well, I mean, these are still in, as well as these are in. We talked a little bit last time about maybe this doesn't need to be impervious, maybe it doesn't even need to go that far, maybe it only needs to go as far as this or something. But I didn't include, there's considerable alteration here that I don't think was originally shown. There was alteration for detention up in this area. I guess the other thing was, what has changed in terms of the regulations? So has stormwater regulations changed that were different from the time that we approved this? Because that would be a reason that we may not want to amend an order as well as if the regulations were different.
I'm not saying whether I want to amend or don't want to amend.
No, I'm just saying those are the things that we've considered.
And I would like to take a look so that I can see what's going on there, because I'm not familiar with the project. So I can't say this is fine if I don't really know all the details personally enough to even vote.
Well, Can I just have that question answered, though? I think it's whether or not the stormwater regulations have changed.
The stormwater regulations have changed. Back in the old project, the intent was to basically raise the whole site and put it down to a single detention basin. And actually, that was even before Sugar Road got realigned for the traffic light. So there's a culvert that got installed under Sugar Road so that it didn't have to be dug up when the project went through, so they cut that culvert under there. So yes, there have been changes now with, back then, we didn't even have the term low-impact development. So what we anticipate on this is having, rather than one large single basin, having multiple smaller, shallower basins around the site and keeping with the low-impact development. And we'd have to go through it, and the overall approach to drainage has changed a lot since then. Back then, the criteria was only no increase in pre-development to post-development runoff. Now we have more techniques that we deal with. We have the deep sump catch basins with the hoods. Back then, I think we proposed them because it was good planning, but it wasn't required.
So
Things
because
like that.
if you were to amend this order, you would have quite a bit of work to do, to address all the things that are, what would be in an amended order. So what is the advantage of you amending the order or just filing it?
We're,
I mean-
you know, fundamentally, the approvals that are in place are all based on the current permit, and we're modifying we're modifying the current comprehensive permit, utilizing all the base work that is done in conjunction with that, so that we're not starting over from a permitting process. So, and so that's really what we're trying to carry through, so that we've got that basis to get the project approved, you know, as efficiently as we can and moving forward.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I just don't feel comfortable with what I have now. I need to see the site, not when it's covered with snow, that's the problem, it's not gonna do me a lot of good. But I would like,
Yeah, that's what we're bumping up against and
Yeah.
wanting to try to proceed with stuff with, and so that's where that's another advantage for us from the amendment perspective, is that, you know, we can proceed with our planning with a level of comfort of what the line is.
What kind of assumptions do you want to begin this?
The line is the basis
The line
of
is-
it.
right.
You know,
So
it's a-
basically,
it's a-
it's-
We've got a lot of different offset requirements now. I mean, we get some, not advantages of flexibility, but we've got 5 septic systems now that we've got offsets, we've got, you know, elevation modifications, all that stuff, and we need to make sure that the site, that the drainage works and it's in compliance with appropriate, in compliance with
Why wasn't it
standards.
evaluated, I guess, then, while you were out there summer and
It
fall?
was.
The line?
We had looked at it as we got into the planning of it, and where the order was in effect, quite frankly, we felt it was okay. You know, I have, you know, we've made modifications in this, and we were talking about it last time, I did a site in Boxborough. You know, there was a permit in the riverfront, it's a completely different plan, it was changed, DEP said, hey, look, if there's less impacts, have at
Yeah,
it.
but see, I don't know that there's less impact. I don't quite I like your plan, I mean, I like your project, but I don't necessarily feel like there's less impact necessarily. I mean, I think it almost seems to me like if you're confident with the line that you have, to base your other things to move ahead with those things, and to, you know, do, my opinion, to do a new filing and submit the information, you know, that we're gonna require and need, you know, to write the order, because it's not that much different, you know, in terms of timing, because we have to go through an amendment, it's the same, you know, public hearing process.
At the end of the day, from our perspective, in terms of the information that we feel that the board is going to want and that we're more than comfortable with providing, you know, we're not trying to limit the board review or limit the board being
No, I
comfortable
get
with
that, I
what we're doing.
We won't let you do it.
Yeah, so whatever you want, we're going to get you the information. We were just looking to have the starting point to be able to go forward and to preserve the existing permits, just to make sure from a compliance end. And in some ways, it's just paranoia that we don't miss something. But the permits, it's there, it's in effect, and the same with the comprehensive permit. And some people say, well, geez, it's been there for years, it's been extended, and it's been extended, it's legal, it's viable, it's recognized by the board, and, you know, we just feel it's the same thing, you know, with the order. So maintaining that structure, we think, is beneficial. You know, your comment, no, I can completely understand your, you know, your feelings and your position. That's why we're, you know, whenever here, we're asking, you know,
Yeah.
and trying to provide.
Well, if you're
you know, as
asking,
much
I would like to
information
take
we
a
can.
look, and I can't do that right now, unfortunately, because of the weather conditions, but I would like to take a look, just so that I feel comfortable, and then we can move forward, you know, with an amendment if that's the way you want it to go.
Okay.
But without looking, I have no way of, because I haven't been involved in this yet.
I understand, and that's a lot of people are in the same position, you know, in the conversation from the last meeting, so.
There's the looking, but then there's the looking and what are you seeing? I mean, you might be seeing a big open field and, you know, so what? There's no flags, there's no, you know, there's no wetland flags, we don't know if the delineation is holding, and I guess, people say it is, I don't know, I mean, if we, it seems to me that the basic starting point is the delineation.
Which is in effect.
Right.
which is a viable order.
Right.
And so, and that's
So,
that's
you know,
really, that's the
then-
point of what where we've been starting,
Then
is that
amend, you
we
know.
build this project, this is the line, you know, we
And
make
then
a
we
change.
just- and, you know, you're-
why should
you're-
the
Well,
line be
I mean,
different?
before you say that,
I'm just-
I know,
I'm
but
just
I don't
throwing
think
it
that
out
that's,
there,
that's
yeah.
not the only thing. Again, when you should look at the policy again.
Right.
So amending, and again, I get what his
Minor-
point is,
right.
but it, you know, have things changed, you know, regulation-wise, have things changed on the site. So Bob's saying he'd like to see where the wetland is, and whether there's less impact. I don't know that that's the case either.
Well, I
from
don't
what
either. That's a,
what we're, you know.
that is a question that has to be answered, but we don't know if there's less impact if we don't know what the wetland is.
Right, but as Mark had said at the last meeting, if it's changed, his assumption is that it's changed within 5 feet, let's say. And so what they're proposing is not significantly
Okay.
different in terms of their layout. It is from the 25-foot, because I think you do have grading quite close, and you have detention quite close and so forth. So there's some places that it might get quite tight.
I'm
if
just
it
trying
If
was-
it went 5 feet and you're in
Right.
25 foot,
Right.
that's 20% closer,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Well, I'm just trying to find a starting point.
Yeah, I know.
For this, you know, so you amend, but, you know, the amendment has to be minor, you know, and all these other things have to be in play in order for you to amend the order. Question is, do we have sufficient information now, you know, based on everything you've told us, that those requirements to amend the order are, you know, have you met the criteria?
We feel, and I think we delineated a little more specifically in the information submitted in the previous one, including attaching copies of the standards and the specific regulation information. We feel we meet that standard. That's our opinion.
I'm not disagreeing. I just
Norma.
need to go out and take a look, that's my whole thing.
Can this, can it be flagged?
I mean, if, you know, from, like I said, from our end, it's this, you know, it's getting that starting point that's beneficial, so that we don't sit around for another 4 months and do stuff. So that's part of it. I don't have a problem, you know, come springtime, you know, having them go out there, taking a look at it, having the board come in, look at it, and, you know, we're gonna work with the board.
Yeah, sure.
You know, so if something moves a few feet and we can modify our stuff here and there, we can. I know we're gonna have there are gonna be certain areas, as Carol said, we do have more limited space.
Yes.
But, you know, that being said, you know, whatever we have available and for shifting things, you know, we can do it. At this point, we've done enough on the site in terms of the soils, the grading, you know, that, you know, we've got a high degree of confidence that this plan, as we see it, is correct. You know, there's always going to, once we get in and do the final grade, there'll be some minor variations. But fundamentally, based on, you know, the historical data and the current data that we put together, you know, we think this works. If there was, you know, a minor variation of a flag here and there, you know, we can work it out, and we will. But like I said, it gives us the green light to move forward. But we're happy to flag it and have you see it in the spring and go out and have a conversation and.
Well, I think the board
and
needs
do
to
all
meet,
that.
you know, just with Carol or just me and Carol, and kind of hammer out what, you know, get the information, that, you know, so that we feel comfortable whether we amend the order or not.
Well, you're gonna have to flag it anyway, no matter what you do.
We're absolutely, we're gonna have, I mean,
so
we have
basically it's-
to, we have to have it be visible.
The
from a
design
work
that you
perspective.
have, it doesn't matter where you have your lines. Before you can start, you have to flag it. So it's not really what the flagging is, because you're gonna have to do it no matter what.
No question.
So it's more on total impact of, is it a smaller impact overall? Doesn't have anything to do with the lines, because you're gonna have to do the lines anyway before you can start.
Yep. There's
So it's really
there's
the overall.
no question that the line is gonna be
And if there's a line that
identified
totally
and then you're
changes,
looking at-
maybe it's 29 houses and not 30 houses, because you have to take it out because the line changed so much that you can't fit that in.
We'll work with it. Yep.
Is that what I'm seeing? I don't,
Well, I mean, I guess the issue is amend or...
I guess it's really.
So let's just, again, read through what the amendment
Yes.
policy is,
Yeah.
okay? So they're making the request, that's the first thing. The issuing authority, you guys first have to make a determination whether the requested change is great enough to warrant the filing of a new notice of intent, or whether it is of a relatively minor nature, and be considered as an amendment to the original final order conditions. In making this determination, the issuing authority should consider such factors as whether the purpose of the project has changed, whether the scope of the project has increased, whether the project meets relevant performance standards, and whether the potential for adverse impacts to the protected statutory interest will be increased. Relatively minor changes which result in the same or decreased impact of the interests protected by the Act are appropriate for amendments. If the determination is made that the project purpose scope has changed substantially, or that the interests specified in the Wetlands Act are not protected, then the issuing authority should not issue the amendment, but should require a new filing. 3, the commission, if the commission determines it's not necessary, then you go through the process of, holding another hearing to amend the order, and they have to notify the abutters and all of that kind of stuff. So, has the project changed? It's still a housing project. It is changed in that it's smaller, units, and, they're not doing the soccer field and stuff like that. Whether...
Scope of the project has increased.
Scope of the project, so that's part of the question. Increased within the resource area. Maybe it hasn't changed overall, in terms of, again, it's roadway and it's, there's wells and there's detention and so forth, but I think within the resource area, that's not completely clear to me because we didn't have the, I don't have the grading for the detention areas. We don't have the infrastructure for where the well lines are going. I didn't have a plan that had the septic system locations on it, I don't think.
that's what we asked for last time, that we wanted to see.
I thought you have the 3D reduced plans, I think you have them.
It doesn't show the septic on
We
there.
don't have the septic.
That didn't get back to me, so sorry. I couldn't turn that later
There's a
on.
lot-
I apologize.
We were covering a lot last meeting,
The septic systems are definitely outside the buffer zone.
And any detention basins,
Some of the detention basins will be in the buffer zone simply because they've got to be in the low point so that they capture enough water. It's the nature of the beast. Same thing with, we still would use the area down in this front corner for stormwater detention. It's beautiful sand and gravel. There's an existing depression. We'd expand on it. I don't know that we would make it as large as what had previously been proposed because we're not putting it all into a single basin. It's going to be dispersed over the site. The wells are already in, so at least there's no physical alterations to the wetlands. One thing, at some point, when Kevin Still was on the site, the culvert had collapsed and he replaced it.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that.
That was a question we had.
He collapsed.
He never contacted us about doing that part of it, so I'm not for sure. I was out on the set a lot at the time, but I don't recall that ever happening.
He had done that, but he may have even done it early on in the process. I don't remember. I just remember him saying, the old clay pipe collapsed, so we replaced it, and we knew what size we were going to be needing, so. I just vaguely remember that, but obviously we're going to have to look at that.
So I think, so relatively minor changes which result in the same or decreased impact to the interest and are protected by the Act are appropriate for amendments. That's the sort of the clincher, I think. Relatively minor, I don't know. The other thing that I mentioned at the last meeting, which, I did look at again, a lot of what we did with this first project, and Sue will probably attest to this, is that it got put on the plans, so the order's sort of broad in some ways. It's not nearly the type of order that you would probably issue today with, some of the check and balances that you don't have. But a lot of what was on it was part of, one of the big things is that part of the order conditions was an O&M plan for the detention basin. So obviously that would be different, because you're going to have more or multiple, or you may have, I don't know what the designs are going to be, whether, how they're going to be designed. So
But it can be-
you will have things that are going to be confusing, I think, with an amendment to somebody who's administering it, down the road, if it was not built immediately, or
They're
if
gonna
it.
be here
because-
forever.
Or if it was, requesting a certificate of compliance down the road
That's
after
what
it
we
gets
thought
built
about
out.
Amy.
You know? So I'm just, there's a bunch of things that I just throw it out, because I don't think it'll be as clean, if you had it in order. I completely understand all of Mark's points, and, I certainly like the project more than the other one. But I just am trying to think administratively and, how the
To address
commission.
that, Carol, we always, when I was, before Places, when I was at Ross Associates, and before then, Perkins Company, we always put a lot of details on our erosion and sedimentation control plans, so that, frankly, it made it a lot easier for the commissions to issue their order of conditions, and many of our conditions became their standard order of conditions. So in modification, we would anticipate that we would have an updated erosion and sedimentation control plan with more of the details. I mean, back when this started, the NIPD's permit was for 5 acres, now it's down to 1 acre. But it triggered a NIPD's back then as well. It's just that when we go to do the NIPD's permit, the stormwater pollution prevention plan requires a lot more details. I mean, now we have to show a concrete washout station for when the concrete trucks are done pouring a foundation. We have to show where the porta potties are gonna be, things like that. So it's not really a lot more work. We'd have to do that regardless if it was an amended or the original order of conditions. But those are the type of details that we typically would put on the plan anyway, so that it
I think we had
makes-
wanted them to, because we wanted the contractor to see them on the plan and not,
Right, right. And I do,
back and forth.
I do inspections for Stowe and Boxborough, and I find that if it's not on the plans, the guy in the bulldozer isn't gonna see them. If you have a 4-inch thick booklet of specs, they rarely see them, so we do like to see them on the plan, and I think that worked well with the commission, and the commission's feelings at the time was, let's make sure it's on the plan, because, well, just as this happened, it was done for Kevin Sweeney, and you can't count on Kevin Sweeney being the one to build it, and now it's Mark. So we tried to put as much stuff, and they're also performance-based, so we're not saying that, you only have to put in a row of hay bales. It's, you put it in, and if you need more,
We don't
you're
use hay, we
required
use
to.
straw.
I know. Everybody uses the straw wattles or straw bales. Or even the compost socks are really good too. But anyways, it's still performance-based and not necessarily, just, back then it was, a line of hay bales.
I'm not arguing with you at all. I'm just
So-
saying, I don't have
Yeah.
any knowledge, I
Okay.
have to go see it. I
Okay.
can't see it right now, is my personal problem. I don't know if you're familiar with Laurie, but I don't think the rest of us are that familiar with it, so. You've been on what, 2 months?
No, this is going on long, it's almost on a year.
Is it been that long? It seems like yesterday.
2 months was yesterday. It seems these days, everything goes.
Except my son-in-law said he wanted vacation with us for a week.
Yeah.
That was the bad news. The good news, it seemed like a month.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to send you off today.
I would like to look at it as soon as it's, ready to look at it, if you can let us know. I think that's what I need to get my head around, but I just can't get my head around it right now. And there's issues on both sides, and I,
Well, even just to see a proposed amendment too, because I think that's what we're running into, is just the size of the changes. That, if it was small enough, I think you all kind of like the project better than the old existing project. Preferably, I think everybody would be happy doing an amendment relatively. But in everything we have written and what we discussed last time, it's just the size. That if it's small relative changes, an amendment's fine. But it looks like, even though they're very positive changes, it's a lot of change. It's a big change relatively for the project. That, even to go and check the lines, which would be great. I think like, if I could see a proposed amendment, and if it was small enough and compact enough, and there were a few little things here and there, I could say, sure, let's do it with an amendment. But I think if we got into writing a proposed amendment, it starts getting big enough that I think everybody might say.
Well, if we proceed along, there's a certain amount of it, from my end, obviously, the risk that we're trying to balance is designing it and then shifting it because of the line. That's the risk that I'm trying to manage here, quite frankly, and trying to be able to utilize the time between now and the spring to be able to continue with the planning. Based on the time that they've spent on the site and viewing and feeling that, that there isn't there really hasn't been much migration of the line. If I decide that I've decided I'm comfortable with, with their opinions of what they've seen. If we proceed and go ahead with the work and can start putting the framework into an amendment and put it in front of the board, and that's, obviously, more of a bit more risk from my end. But if the feeling is that, it's modest, I think the board's generally comfortable with what we're doing, and if, we can, work in a reasonable fashion and try to get something a little more specific in front of you as we develop the information, then maybe we can deal with it that way. As weather permits, we can go out, we can take a look at it, and we'll be evaluating the line, ourselves, and whether we're gonna flag it, try to flag it now. It won't make any sense to do it now with the weather is the issue. But I don't wanna waste 2 months is really the concern. So maybe we'll go ahead and do that, present it to the board, hope for an amendment. If the line ends up being the same and, we do it in order, it's, like I said, the process isn't gonna be dramatically different in terms of what you're gonna be looking for.
Makes sense.
So maybe we'll go with that. And, as, we get a break in the weather and, it seems there's an opportunity to go out, I can touch base with Carol and, maybe we can set up a sidewalk or something, and if people can see it, and we can, get the basis of the line out there for people to see, and if there's a comfort that, nothing looks like it's changed, and, then we'll just have to deal with it incrementally.
Okay.
The one comment I would have on that is if when we start to pull together more of the details, my one concern is if we file a formal amendment with you and you advertise and open the public hearing, and then at that time decide that that maybe it does warrant a new order of conditions, then we start from scratch on that time frame of the advertising, notifying the abutters.
We can do it, if the board's open to doing another informal, once we, maybe if we have the amendment
Have more
put together.
details.
I think that's what it sounded like you were talking about.
That's what I was
Do it
gonna do.
in a
Okay, I just want to
formal-
make sure that we're all on the same page.
You could, no matter what, either a new notice or an amended order, you're working towards the same thing. You're gonna use what you believe the line to be, and you're gonna be putting all your engineering together. And as you get all that together, maybe we'll have a break in the weather. Maybe we'll have some more information that you've come across that, helps to make everyone feel differently. Or maybe you'll revise some things that, could be pulled out a little bit. The impervious area that we talked about, maybe that doesn't need to be there, or move the garage out of the buffer, maybe it's some things that can be changed.
I just wanted to make sure that we didn't start the amendment process and then backtrack, just like when people say they
Well,
want
that's
to
always
file
the
a
risk with an
reading
amendment,
notice
because
of
there's no
intent, they
real
usually
policy.
say go full
There's no
blown, so you
real,
don't take a chance.
there's no legal aspect to it,
that's
so
fine.
that's, I think nobody would want to do that to you, but,
I just wanted, since I'm going to be the one doing a lot of the permitting, I just want to make sure it's
Okay.
clear in my mind, and so I think we're good.
All right.
Right, thank you.
Good, thank you very
Nice
much
to
for
meet
your
both of you.
time.
Nice to meet you. We'll see you
Thanks for coming in.
We'll be back.
Carol, do you want this copy for your minutes, so that where we...
which one was that one?
The one,
double?
the Sweeney one that I printed in 60 scale? Or do you not want to worry about it?
Maybe you want the split? You want one of these?
Yeah, if you can leave me what you had, what you brought in tonight for the plans, that would be good. Okay. I don't need those, it's not a public hearing, so I don't really need those. And then the plan that I had that I highlighted would be great to get that one back again. Well, we put some your mill here, but we weren't really gonna talk about the differences particularly, so, but I should just introduce you. Well, they're close enough. No, well, Technology and, this is not very, the book conservation process, so it's only been that since the developer.
That's the Sweeney
Mill and.
We'll do that.
So,
That.
I also-
You own this land already? Are you just under P&S?
It's under P&S. Freddie Creek has bought it, and we're buying it from Freddie.
But you just under P&S, right?
Yes, yes, I control the site, but I do not, I am not acquired it yet.
Well, let's hope the snowstorm fizzles.
Well, the last big one did, unless you were in Hingham.
The property line they got slammed down there, yeah.
But I mean, didn't they do
We
that
got-
the
we didn't
last
even get
one?
an
There wasn't a
issue.
whole lot.
Yeah, I think they got 20 inches in Cohasset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I flew in that day, that's the day you had the
You have to
meeting.
go to the
I
office.
flew in from Dallas, it took me 2.5 hours to get home from the airport.
Yeah.
To get
So
to
if
work.
you have
New England
the,
still can't drive.
plans
It's
that
bad weather,
you
I
have
thought.
to show the
Right.
septic,
Everybody still
any of
does
the
this,
other
yeah. It's amazing.
infrastructure stuff?
And I just can't believe how wrong you get it.
So, okay.
Just move around.
You're not wrong.
Yes, Marcus.
Conditions.
Lot of areas, yeah.
That waits.
I think they're amazing at what they
I
do.
do have it with.
I really think,
the
people knock them, I think they're
drainage, which I
amazing.
didn't pick up.
Okay.
They do better than stock market.
Yeah, they have a lot of time between the time I got it.
That's right.
But I didn't
Well,
have
it's
to,
nice to meet you. Next time I meet you.
You want one with septics and drainage?
And if there's any, if you know where the infrastructure for the water lines are gonna go.
Yeah, we haven't gotten that far yet. Other than I know that.
As I get it, you get it.
Once you guys get in position,
But not right before the meeting.
Andy, once you come up to the table, start getting in position. Because we have a curfew, you know, and we students, this last time we saw it.
The snow's coming, yeah.
Thank you.
See you later.
I was just adding new comments.
You should have just taken the comments on a sheet.
You may be worthy of the association. See it, take care.
Okay.
Oh, line 2.
So we'll be online.
What page are we on?
I think page 2,
Two.
maybe we'll just add it number 2.
No.
Oh, no.
I think we're on 6.
We're
We're on
intentionally
6.
late.
We just talked about the mats. They're gonna be sized to accommodate the equipment.
Yeah,
We're
okay.
moving on to 7.
I don't, no, we weren't that far.
Yes, we just talked about the mats. That was in 6, the last line of 6.
Remember the.
Mats will be sized to accommodate the equipment and used in the road wetland crossing.
What page do you think, on, Carol?
Well, I don't have a page, I'm on the computer.
Page 2.
I can show you.
You sure you only had a cigarette in with it?
No, that's 7, I said, right? So,
There's some missing.
oh, there's some stuff missing on yours.
Yeah, so
Yours.
that's why.
Did you have 7 online?
You were at town meeting, and they were a proposal?
For the,
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
here.
You were at town meeting?
Mats will be used, but,
Oh, okay.
I still disagree with that.
or if you have it on your computer, you can read it on your computer and they can look
I
at it.
could understand
On here.
on Chuck, but when they said, kids pop, we'll talk after, yeah.
This one has 2 pages.
I don't know, you wanna work on this one? We'll just listen.
Yeah, my printout's hard too because it does, the run-ons don't
Okay.
go. All right.
So you,
I've ceased to mind.
all right, so you,
So it was line 69 on that one. 69
okay,
overall.
all
if you
right.
get
Number
it.
7, we're going to have additional provisions for dewatering and controlling silt runoff as needed, depending on field conditions, including, we're going to have, do you want me to read this word for word?
No.
I think you should just do the highlighted stuff.
Okay. We're gonna have some pipes that we're gonna lay down on the ground, we're gonna have some hay bales that direct the water into the pipes. Let's see, access for cranes, okay. Moving along. We're gonna put the culvert in place, commence installation of the retaining wall, and placement of structural fill-in between the retaining walls beginning adjacent to arch culverts. In other words, the arch culverts gets placed on the road, and you actually start building the wall right next to it. You're putting blocks down on 2 sides, the road's in the middle. And as soon as we put a couple rows of blocks down, there'll be enough, then we will fill in between the blocks. So there's basically a road we'll no longer be driving on the wetland or we'll be working on placed material. And do you have that one you got? Can I have that one? Because that one I can read all her comments. Okay, 'cause at one point you said, Carol, you had a question here, and you said,
What will take 1 month?
what will take 1 month? I'm
So,
saying, I mean, that's a conservative amount of time to get the road base down and the first row of blocks. Put the culvert in and the first row of blocks
okay,
and filled. So it could go quicker, but
so the culvert, first row of blocks. All
yeah, I mean, it says after only 2 row of blocks are installed.
right, I guess it seemed like a long time, I guess I thought, so I wasn't sure if I was missing something.
Is that okay the way it reads now?
Yeah, I just didn't know, that's what, it was a
Okay.
question.
All right, so then, and let's see, back and forth travel unrelated to construction of crossing will not occur until the retaining wall and structural filler in place from one end of the crossing to the other. So in other words, that's going to happen very quickly. Within a month, is what we're saying. We have mats. Continue raising the wall. Wetland replication or restoration to follow protocols that are in the plans. Then you had a question that says, is it going to take this long to build the wall?
So you had from March to June.
Right, the reason being is that once we're driving on placed material, I didn't think that it mattered that much to you how long it took us to raise the wall
Well,
up.
only because it relates to the grading, right? The grading of the auras.
Yes.
So, I'm looking to see everything stabilized
Right, but we
as
haven't,
soon as possible, so it, to
except
me.
we haven't even touched it yet.
We've touched it, you just haven't,
We cut the trees, we haven't pulled any stumps or anything. So it should be stable, that's the point. It should be fine.
That's not clear to me that you haven't touched and started doing that, because up
Yes.
above that you have that you will start doing that as you get closer.
As we're bringing the wall up.
Right.
Yes, and then we're saying, once we start, once we've grubbed it, this says we are going to keep it stable.
Right, and so,
But we're delaying the grubbing of it.
yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
So I guess what it didn't seem clear to me is that whether you're going to take the 3 months to build the wall to the height that you needed to. And if that was the case, I wasn't sure where the grading was going to come along, whether there was going to be grading that was going to start in March, because you got one side done, and then, was it not going to be, then the other side? I just wasn't clear
Okay.
exactly how this wall, and the grading, and why it was taking 3 months, I guess that's.
The main reason is because that once you bring in the first
Yeah, row.
row, right, we're no longer, all our work is confined to the road. We're working on a road.
Yeah,
And depending on the weather,
yeah.
if it's like frozen conditions, it's going to require a lot more work to continue adding layers, because you can't fill on frozen material for compaction reasons. In other words, you can't, if we get in the first 3 feet, and then it was just horrendously cold weather, we could do it, but we would need to be covering the work with blankets and heating it.
I thought you were talking about building the wall, though, here.
Right.
So continue raising the height. So you've already got the first row in. So you're saying you have to cover the first row with blankets before you can add the next row?
no, I understand what he's saying, but he's added what he's saying is, as they build the wall, they bring more and more fill in.
Correct.
But if the
Okay.
fill underneath is frozen,
Oh,
they
okay, you're
can't add
talking
the
about
other
the fill
fill
in
because it won't.
between. Okay, so it's not the it's not the blocks that's the problem, it's the fill in the road.
Correct.
But this
Okay.
brings, in my mind, now I'm a little confused. You only have one row of blocks, let's say the road's this high.
Yeah, okay.
It's above the wetland,
That you go, it's above the, so it's just, how high is the culvert off the wetland?
20 feet.
No, the height
No,
of
Oh, the culvert,
I know where
so-
Bob's going. It's
12 feet
gonna have
high.
to be higher than one chorus of block, is what he's saying, because the
I
culvert, you know,
mean, the culvert's 12 feet high,
And how high is a block?
4 feet high.
So how could you go over the culvert if the road isn't completed
You
over
can
the culvert?
always, the road's 50 feet wide, and we could temporarily fill over the culvert, temporarily. That's all. Just like, and you wouldn't have to do it 50 feet wide.
So you have to, if the culvert's like this, you have to get the road to come up and over at some point to get over, correct?
If we're actually building the road, it'll come up even like this. But if the weather was horrendous, you could build like a little bit temporary ramp.
A ramp of,
Yeah,
out of,
for temporary, just to get.
and what keeps that ramp in place if the weather gets, doesn't cause all those materials to seep into the weather?
Well, the road, keep in mind, the culvert's 50 feet wide, so if you put it in the middle, and it
Yeah.
was 10 feet wide, it's,
Yeah, but it's gonna be sloping down the side, so it's not like it's a flat 50 feet at that point. It slopes
I
down.
don't think there'd be any issue whatsoever, because you're talking a 50-foot wide road with a little driveway in the middle,
Yeah,
that's all.
and but what's on the other side of the driveway? It drops down, right?
If this is the culvert, okay,
So the road's gonna be built up over here.
the road goes this way, and this is
Yeah.
how, this is like the part under the culvert.
And this is
Right.
50 feet long,
And
12
this
feet
is
high.
50, we could, if we could temporarily just come over this. And
Right.
you'd still have so much distance. And then you got the hay bales way over here. I mean, it's
Straw.
straw. They are straw.
So
But
you're gonna have hay bales out here and out here.
they're already in, yes.
Yeah. So that's my only concern is that
Plus
some of
we
this
have all-
material from
plus
the
we
little
have all-
ramp might dissolve and run into, could run down here with the wetlands. I just don't, I haven't seen it. I just want you to be aware of it, Carol.
I mean, we could use crushed stone, I mean, so that it is not, it doesn't have to be dirt. I mean, we would use something that we wouldn't cause ourselves.
Because originally, when you
problem.
explained the last time I was here, you were gonna lay, all you said was you lay down one thing, you fill it, then you put another
We can.
thing.
We can do that.
And fill it. So this is the first time I've heard about, you're only gonna have one in case the weather's bad.
No, no.
Because you can't compact it.
You asked me why it could why did I put on here a 3-month period,
Yeah,
okay? And the reason why I put a 3-month period is because if it was horrendous weather,
right. And that's what we're concerned about, is horrendous
well,
weather.
cold weather, if it's horrendously cold,
Yeah,
then I may not want to heat, with blankets every day. Like right now, we're still pouring foundations. And the way we're digging, we dig a foundation hole, we have a huge tarp. To call it a tarp is an understatement. You have to have a crane to move it. And it's approximately 150 feet long by about 150 feet wide. So when we dig a foundation hole, we move this tarp over the hole, and we have actually things in the hole that support it. So it stays off the ground, and we run heaters underneath it. So we can work in the winter.
Right, you have to
and
because
keep-
it's-
And
yeah.
keep things not frozen.
right. But you don't want to do that on this road, is what you're saying?
No, I'm not, I'm saying that there's no reason
Okay.
necessarily to do it, so.
So let me ask, maybe this might shorten the argument. Is this something you think you can control from the field if you think that the methods they're taking are not adequate?
If it's
that's my
crushed
question.
stone, it's certainly a lot easier than if it's fill and it's moving,
Yeah, if it's crushed stone, it's.
So maybe we should just put in that if they do that, they use, if
Trap
the weather
rock
gets
or
bad, they use crushed stone or
Or trap
something,
rock,
and then
yeah.
we
You
can
could allow
have this
that.
argument.
I mean, I don't know if you have to write it down, but we can just use that.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that Carol can enforce it, that's all.
Well,
So if
we're
you
not allowed to have any siltation, right, getting into the wetland.
Yeah, but it happens, Andy, it's happened on
No,
your
no, no,
site
I
before.
understand that, but I don't think you have to go in on it. I'm just saying, on every single thing, I don't think you have to get into specifics. We know we're not supposed to,
I know, but what Bob's saying is that this is sort of outside the scope of the order because it's a different time frame, and so we're trying to be more specific so that if we have to
I'm
come
happy
in
to
and
put it-
say,
I'm happy to
you know,
put
if
it
we have
on.
to come in and say, look, you need to stop because this is a problem, that we
Right.
have the reason, you know, that it's there, it's clear, you know, that we discussed it.
So I don't
you
care
know.
if it's in, or Carol has the right to stop you if she's...
well, you have to, you always, if
Right,
if we're...
but you want it to be clear as to what
Yeah.
the, you know, how it's gonna be done.
Okay, so I can add that.
Okay, and mine was just a question, it wasn't.
Right, no,
really-
and I was just
Yeah.
putting it in, I mean, we're not, we try to give when we give you a schedule that we're gonna live up to.
I'm fine with that,
So,
it just
even if
brought
I
up the
think
thought.
something can be done in 2 weeks,
Andy?
I might put down, you know,
Let's
4
move,
weeks.
Andy, let's move on, I think we solved this one.
Okay. You know, because I'm not trying to mislead you.
I don't think
give
you
myself
are.
plenty of time.
It's just I didn't
and
understand that exception to the process, that's all.
you know, we're actually, you know, just, you know, like the tarp I'm talking about, a friend of mine makes the cover for the infield of Fenway, that's
Yeah.
who made it. I mean, this thing is,
Do you have a logo in the middle? You have a company logo
but
or
it's an
something like that?
incredible thing that we actually do to make sure we do things properly in the winter.
You should get the logo.
I didn't get a logo.
CME, right in the middle.
What's
Aerial
that?
CME, right in the middle,
Right.
aerial photographs, everyone will know.
I could show you a picture. All right, so, let's see here. Where am I?
15.
15. All right. Okay, so that's, we're gonna, whenever we do the wetland work, whether it's wetland work or restoration work, it's pursuant to the plans.
Yeah.
The protocols.
And so my only question had been, I still wasn't sure when the replication was going to be, replication area was going to be stumped and grubbed. And I guess that goes...
When the what?
When the wetland replication area was going to be stumped and grubbed. You're going to cut it when you cut everything, but I wasn't really clear that it was clear. Maybe it's in the protocol, and maybe I just didn't go back to that.
Well, we have dates down here, and, you know, saying when the work is gonna be done.
For the wetland replication, stumping and grubbing, that's what I couldn't find, but...
I mean, I think it's just, we want to just avoid destabilizing the area when it's crappy out. There's no, right, there's no reason to.
It's obviously, everything you're saying is weather permitting.
Right.
So can you put in that before you
I have
drop
it in
that
here.
you get
I
notified?
added a note that says, oral restoration construction to follow protocols set forth and approved plans. The plantings are to be done between April and September, which is what the order already says, and we plan to complete by July 15th or earlier as weather permits. Because if it's super wet out, that's not really a great time to go and
Make a mess.
start digging things up, because you just turn everything into mud.
I think we
So-
talked about this a few meetings ago, too.
Is it something
We're
that
going
you
to
should be
stockpile
notified
outside.
on, Carol, where it's,
Yeah.
or
So
is
that-
it-
that was
Wait,
already
I'm
added.
missing.
is it something you should be notified when they finally go to do it, where it?
Well, I think unless it was in the protocol, which I didn't go back to specifically on here, my question was just really, when was the area, the replication area going to be stumped and grubbed? And I didn't kind of come across that throughout the whole thing. I know when you said you were going to cut, and I know the dates that you're going to plant by, but I wasn't sure when, generally in this
Oh.
process, when you thought you were going to be doing the stumping and grubbing. I guess that was...
Prior to the planting, we would have to.
So you would do it just prior to the planting, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any reason to leave it.
Okay, so then let's add that if that's, and you can think about it, you can add it, if that's when you think you want to add it. But that's just what I was looking for, is when you think you're going to do that.
Okay. Does anybody have a plan? Stumping and grubbing to be done prior to planting?
In the wetland area, the wetland replication area, that's the one I was asking about.
Yeah, I mean, the protocols sets it forth.
I didn't look back at that, I don't think, when I wrote that question.
All right. Then, let's see, then we get down to, I made the change that you wanted, while I was sitting over here, so that number 5 now says, at wetland crossing and or associated with wetland crossing. Okay.
Okay.
And then you said, or, you had a note, you said, or areas 3 and 5 should not be touched until after the equipment has crossed the wetland. Or 3 and 5 are on the other side, right?
Right.
Yes, you couldn't, you'd have to.
Right, so if you look at your note here, I mean, so 6 is now construction sequence for areas outside the crossing. So you have, this is now going into the areas that are outside the crossing. You have or areas, and you said there's no wetland replication outside the crossing. Item 6 does not pertain to the crossing.
Right. so
And
I
my
changed that.
comment was that that's a little confusing. You can just say the or areas that are not related to the wetland
I
crossing.
changed
But then
it.
in the next one, and then I guess, I don't know why I wrote it down on the next thing, but or 3 and 5 are on the other side,
Right.
right? So those,
I put down more restoration construction to follow protocols set forth in approved plans. For RSC sheet 58. And I changed it to say the plantings, and I added in that paragraph again that you wanted.
okay,
The same paragraph that we had on.
Yep.
Copied it. Right?
yeah, the one I had in red, yeah. If that's what
Yeah.
you're saying, what that says add, yes, if you did that, good.
I did that.
Okay.
Just cut and pasted. So I mean, I didn't add a note that said ORs 3 and 5 should not be touched until after the equipment has crossed the wetland, only because it would be impossible. How could you touch it until the equipment gets on the other side?
I don't remember why it struck me as it should be noted, because I have it 3 times, so it must have struck me pretty good. I'd have to reread it, but there must be some reason I was thinking it needed to be clarified, so I'll look at it again tomorrow. I can't think of it the second.
Okay, and then the retaining walls, I made the change that you wanted that says now retaining walls to be installed at least prior to basins converted to detention areas or sooner at the direction of Concom. And then I changed it to say we may want to evaluate field conditions and determine if all the walls are needed as we did at the crossing when basins are being constructed.
Okay.
Basically, the reason why I'm saying that is there was a benefit for animals and stuff not to have.
Yeah, I have no problem if we decide it's not needed. I just think before, not waiting to do it. I think we should evaluate it when the basin's going to be constructed.
And then you asked about, under number 5, the wetland scientist inspections. I added, well, what it now says, since you have comments, is initial meeting prior to work, inspection prior to stumping and grubbing, one inspection for the road, and the second for the ore, because the grubbing is going to be done at 2 different times. Okay, so prior to stumping and grubbing. That placement of culvert, monthly during interim before excavation of wetland replication. Once a
Okay.
month, is that okay?
That's what you've added? Okay, let me read it again tomorrow, but I thought it sounds all right. I'm starting to space out on you.
Yeah, you've never spaced out on this before.
Spacing out on him, not on you. I'm just looking at what I wrote and
This is unusual, we're doing this during Conservation Committee meeting. We've never done this in my tenure. Go over
Well,
construction plans.
In the sequence.
No, I mean, I
Sequence.
sent it out to you guys and told them that we didn't have comment, but I just sent it out to them today with the revisions, the same ones that I'd sent to you, because I think I just got it last week, Thursday, or
Because this is
very
something,
tight.
this is not a typical
But he
protocol.
wanted to start, so he wanted to make sure that you didn't have anything different, because I said I hadn't had any response, which is not unnormal. It's
Unnormal?
It is normal that if you didn't have something, I wouldn't hear from you, but anyway.
So I think actually,
But a lot of this is, the detailed stuff, which
think
is what
that-
Ellen started with, is that we were gonna kind of work it through.
That's it.
Andy and I.
We appreciate your effort.
That's really, I mean, other than that.
So just, I think, we didn't talk a lot about some of the dates. I would just have you revisit some of the dates
Yep.
when you send it to me tomorrow and see whether they all still seem real to you.
Okay, I mean, other than
He's
that,
not going to visit you tomorrow.
No, he can send it to me tomorrow,
Okay.
yeah,
other than that,
he can send it to me, I may be working at
are
home.
we pretty much,
Yeah, right.
are you pretty much ready to go? Because.
Well, are you guys fine, the time of year, everything's still good, everyone's comfortable with
My
this?
feeling is that you're going to be there to make sure that the conditions are stable enough for him to proceed
Yes.
at the time. And if he starts and they deteriorate, they button everything up and stop.
Right.
That's all I ask.
Yep, and
Yeah,
that's
that's the
written
first,
into here,
one of
and
the
so I
first
think that
comments.
that's exactly what we've all agreed to then.
So, Carol, I'd like to schedule the site walk with you, if we could this week.
We probably are not working tomorrow, so we'll have to see, because,
Because we need to get started.
I know,
in order
but
to
you're getting
get
everybody,
ready.
you're gonna have Mike there, you're gonna have, I'd like the planner to be able to be there as well, I would, because she's new to the job, she should see what's going on.
Okay, I'm just saying, if I can't get started,
Right.
we're gonna lose the.
Right, I'm not
citizens.
sure what the weather's gonna be, we're closed on Friday, tomorrow's, I don't know whether I'll be here, that means it may be a little tight on Thursday, if that's what you're looking for,
I
but if you
have
wanna.
a question for you, Andy.
Yes.
If we do get a lot of snow tomorrow or next week, how do you see where the wetland is and if you have a foot of snow on the ground?
Well, he's already got the erosion controls in, that's what he wants me to sort of come and look at and then walk through all of this
And how high,
stuff.
I mean, they can get buried in a storm.
They could, right, so it's, I can't promise, but I think we can make whatever effort we can.
Okay.
I'd like you to see that you can get everybody together too, so if you want to aim
I'll
for
get-
Thursday.
Anybody who's working for me and is getting paid by me, they're gonna show up. I need to
Okay.
get this, I need to be able to get started because we wanted to get this
Yeah.
started in the winter.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not,
If the weather conditions are suitable for Thursday, I think I can squeeze it in.
I mean,
if we're not-
you're really coming out for the main purpose to look at the.
Erosion controls,
erosion
right,
controls.
right. But when I was out there with Janet, when we ran into, then, things were very confusing to me as to where we were. So it may take me a few minutes to get my head wrapped around where everything is again. And if it's snowing and, you can hardly use your plans in the field, it's not really that easy to get your bearings with checking where the erosion control is supposed to be, where it is, that kind of thing. So I would be happy to try to do it on Thursday. I also have to arrange it with Don Lowe to be there. So,
Who's talking about?
town administrator. He's
Wants to
doing-
come?
Yeah,
Really? How come?
because he comes in the field with us when we go there.
Just to my project?
Yeah,
The town manager?
yeah.
See, you rate.
So I do need to have some time to arrange it. But if we have power, send me an email tomorrow with the corrections and the time, a proposed time, and I'll try to see who I can get
Proposed time for what?
for a site visit.
Anytime you want. You have
No,
to
but-
just let me know in advance.
You propose when you would like us to come out, and I'll see if I can get Dawn available as well.
I can do it, we can do it anytime on Thursday.
Okay, well, all right,
You just have to let me know what time.
okay.
I know I'll have power, but I may not have email. Cable seems to be the...
Yeah, I don't know.
Email seems to be the first thing that goes out, the internet. You can have TV, you can have telephone,
Are we supposed to get a lot? What?
8 to 12.
It's not a big deal.
What?
It's really not a
It's
big
supposed to be heavy, is what they're saying.
It's going to be very wet. It could weigh 20 pounds a shovelful or something.
We're not going
Or
to
40
lose power
pounds.
because we bought a generator.
All right, you saved the neighborhood.
Okay, so can I ask you guys, that's mine.
Which kind did you get?
While Brandon's here, I have a quick question for you,
That's what we
and
have.
unrelated to yours, so if you don't want to pay him anymore, that's another thing.
What time is
Remember
it?
the time we next storm, we were out for like 10 days?
Amy?
Thank you very much.
Worth all the expense for those 10
Yeah, we
days.
didn't have it, that's what.
Nice to see you.
Yeah,
see you.
thanks for coming by and.
Are you staying?
Well, I had Northwoods on the
Yeah.
agenda because they made the request for a certificate of compliance, and last week, Erica, the town planner, and Brandon and I met out there, and we'd had some questions about the sediment forebay had a lot of growth in it, trees and cattails, and The side slopes hadn't been mowed, which was part of the O&M, and then around the standpipe, there was a lot of vegetation. And so, we had some sort of discussion about whether or not that work needed to be done, whether work needed to be done in the sediment forebay before the town accepts the roads. And so therefore, should that be done before the permit gets a certificate of compliance? Because some of that area was within the buffer zone. So, so that's one question. We looked at the natural, or the man-made berm that contains the detention area for that Ledgewood Circle Road. And then we went over to Fieldstone Circle, and Fieldstone Circle is the other small cul-de-sac. None of the area of work for the sediment forebay or detention basin was in the buffer zone, but the outlet pipe and the riprap for the outlet pipe fell into the buffer zone area. And it was all under snow, and there was ice, and we weren't 100% sure whether or not the riprap had been put in. There was still black fence and orange construction fence that was still installed. So, anyway, those were the questions as of Thursday when we were out. Was it Thursday, or I forget what day last week? But, so Brandon has talked to Harold, I guess, and to Fred Hamway, who's the engineer, and had he could make a verbal report since we didn't get a written one at this point.
Yeah, we can get a written response, but I guess the issue is looking at that forebay. There's 3-inch, what are those, willows, Carol?
You know what, I was kind of thinking that either locust or elms, they look like to me, but I wasn't positive.
Elms? At any rate, it's like 3-inch saplings that are in there. I mean, the point of it is there is no operation and maintenance plan in place. Typically, from an engineering practice.
Well, no, there is. There's an O&M for that basin.
But I don't think it covers.
Not for the trees. It didn't cover the bottom of the basin.
Yeah. So, in general, I mean, some vegetation's fine. Trees, you'd probably remove those only from the point that it's a sediment forebay. So the way it functions is as stormwater comes in, the sediment builds up. There just needs to be access to get in there and remove the sediment. Where basically this is going before street acceptance, and from this point forward, the town's going to be maintaining it. Talking to DPW on what they're going to do, particularly even also with the berm, whether or not it's going to be mowed, or should that be mowed prior to handing this over to the town. The way DPW does it now, I mean, in all likelihood, they're not going to be out there mowing these things on an annual basis. And, Harold's main concern is that the pipes don't get blocked. So for instance, there was some vegetation around one of the pipes. We want to make sure that's all free and clear. But as far as some brush or vegetation in there, he's not as concerned about that. So if Chuck Black was to go in and clear all that stuff out, in all likelihood, in 5 years, when and if they even went in to maintain that basin, it's going to look the exact same that it does now. So, do we really want to bear the expense to go in and remove all that stuff, knowing that it's probably not going to be continued to be maintained in that?
Even though it should. And that's how it's essentially supposed to be designed.
So that's the story of it. And talking to Fred, same thing,
So what you're saying is, it should be maintained, but it probably won't. So why should we do this one time? Just give us our certificate of completion.
That's the short of it right there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can say as an engineer, I mean, should it be removed? Yeah. Should it be maintained yearly? Yeah.
Well, my feeling is, while it's under their jurisdiction, they should maintain it according to the plan. Afterwards, if the town doesn't maintain it, that's a different thing. But because the town may not maintain it, doesn't give them the prerogative not to maintain it too, so they should maintain it, in my mind. They agreed to the order of conditions, they built it, and they want it completed, they need to complete the order of conditions.
Sure. Well, I guess that's the point, is that's not in the order.
The trees weren't in the order, having the bottom, so we've had a lot of different designs on the detention basins, like on Century Mill Estates, it's a sand bottom. Nothing's supposed to grow in that sandy bottom, and it's not intended to, I forget if the O&M even has a replacement of sand after so many years or something like that. And we have one that's an infiltration system that's, built with trenches underground, and that's a different system. You can't let any vegetation grow on the top of that one because you don't want the trenches to get clogged up with roots. This one, that sediment forebay, didn't have, in the O and M, it only had mowing the slopes of the forebay was supposed to be done. Now, that hasn't been done, but that's also not really blocking the outlet pipe either. You know, there is vegetation blocking the outlet pipe that probably should be cut away, but it's not like somebody could go in hand to
So
do
the point is really, the only thing that if you take the vegetation down would be to allow somebody to go in and remove the silt. And part of the town's review of that, and we did volume calcs, there isn't any sediment. And really, you'd be more worried about there being sediment in there now because, you know, during construction, it's far more likely that you're gonna fill up that forebay. Now that everything's in and stabilized, I mean, you still can accumulate sand, salt, and stuff from sanding, but the site's stabilized. So, you know, the fact that we just did volume calcs, the volumes are there, the sediment, you know, it doesn't need to be removed now. By the time.
But that's not in the order anyway.
Well, that is,
I guess that's what I'm
Yeah.
making, is that's the part that is in the order.
So they were compliant with
That's in compliance, so in that thing.
But they're not in compliance, what aren't they in compliance with?
nothing.
Nothing.
You said the mowing
Nothing.
Right, the mowing around the.
and the pipes.
Well, it's not, I don't even think it said specifically that the outlet pipe shouldn't have vegetation on it, but that's sort of, the vegetation coming down along the slope would be part of the
Would be mowing.
vegetation. Yeah.
So let them do the mowing.
And then I guess the other part is still the outlet pipe and whether or not there's riprap at the outlet of that, because I couldn't see it, it was covered in snow.
Yeah.
And there's no issue with that. I'm just providing more.
No issue,
information.
meaning it's done or it's not done?
No, we'll go look at that.
Oh, you go look at that later.
You know.
But I think if it was supposed to be mowed, it should have been maintained, it should be mowed. Because what happens
Yeah.
all the time is everybody comes with all its conditions, and everybody says, I want an exception, and when you say, well, what do you want the exception? They say, well, you can't ask me because this doesn't matter, or we already agreed upon that. So it's almost like a one-way street. I don't know if anybody else feels that way. It's like a one-way street. We go through all this, people don't comply.
Yeah. And my feeling is really that, and I've said this ever since I've started working here, is that we really should be working with DPW to get them to do the maintenance of these basins and forebays,
They shouldn't
et cetera.
take it.
Because, and we've said that all along, you know, with the stormwater, every time a subdivision comes in, is, you know, is the town gonna maintain this stuff? And I've offered, you know, we should go and support Harold, you know, at the finance committee if they need money to do that, you know? I mean, it's the stuff that makes the town work, you know? If you don't take care of this stuff, it's your infrastructure. You know, it's part of it.
And no one ever takes into account when they build all these things, the additional cost to the town of maintaining roads.
Yeah.
You only talk about the cost of building stuff, but maintaining in the long run is even more expensive.
So-
They do look at, I mean, they do, there's a significant filing fee, as Chuck will tell you, as part of the street acceptance that goes towards.
Yeah, but how long does that last? I mean, when Harold comes into us and we have things that he wants done, he says he doesn't have the money to do them. He's doing a lot of temporary measures, which are involved in.
So then
Because
really-
he doesn't have the money to do permanent measures.
So the filing fee should go to
the
maintaining that,
maintenance
so
of
he should be able to maintain that then.
I don't know how much the filing fee is.
I'm just,
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know there's a fee, because that's not stuff that we deal
Yeah.
with, so I'm not aware of that.
My feeling on these order of complaints come in, let them complete what they're supposed to do, and then we'll approve it. If they don't complete it,
I mean, I think he
There's no
has,
sense
he
putting it
has,
in.
he wants to go to town meeting, get the street accepted, there's still time before the May town meeting, you know,
Yeah.
to try to do that compliance.
we're just, I think he's just trying to get a short list of what needs to be
Right.
done.
And those are the things that
You
I
know, so
saw on the
that's-
site.
Yeah, that's why we took a look, and that's what we're just talking
Yeah.
about, some of these items.
There was an item that wasn't related to the commission so much, but did you find out about the grate, whether it's supposed to be a grate over that pipe?
Yeah, well, they're supposed to be, yeah.
Okay, so they're gonna do that.
Small children.
So what I've got is the erosion control needs to be removed, we'll verify the riprap.
And the mowing of the slopes.
berm.
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go gas up your diesel.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forget you're gonna have to work
Put
all
the
night.
blade on. I'll wave to you as you go by my house.
Yeah.
Is that all we had for Brandon?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, good night.
Thank you. How's your grandfather and grandmother doing?
Doing good. Yeah.
I think about them every time I drive by.
These cold winters are tough, but we're doing good.
I know, I remember asking them, so what are you doing when you go south? Are you kidding me?
No.
South.
They're real New Englanders, they're
Yeah.
not,
all wood stove.
Yeah.
All right, good night.
Good night.
We'll see you, good night.
So what's on this list then? We have to do, what?
Your resignation took effect at 9:30.
Yeah.
It's
Until
20th.
February 28th.
Oh, you staying that long?
Yeah, but I can't come to the next meeting.
All right, well, I do have a bunch of things that have to
Yeah,
go.
let's do it. I'm sorry,
Let's do what we have to
you want
do.
Bill's mail stuff? Bill's mail?
Well, I wanted to go back up to under land management with the Fife Shire Dam.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So there's a couple things.
We're going to approve the contract.
Yeah, so did everybody look at the recommendation from Leonard Engineering?
I did. I thought it was just kind
Yes,
of weird, so
that was
it's like,
good.
so it's the lowest bid, but they have the least experience.
Right, so I think
But they feel comfortable with.
their
the
references, I
guide.
guess, were very good, you know,
Okay.
so that made them feel comfortable. Again, I don't have a lot of experience with the bidding process, but unless they really haven't met the criteria that's been set forth, it's a hard thing not to accept them.
Right.
So the question of, you know, if you didn't accept them and you went to the other ones, you're more likely to potentially be in a lawsuit with the lower bid taking you to court than, you know, those who were above it, you know,
Plus,
taking
if
us to
it's
court.
nothing obvious and we've hired consultants,
Yes.
how do we make a decision that goes different unless there's something really egregious that we find out? We'd have to go with the consultants.
Right, I mean, he just tried to lay it out for you. This is what it is when you
I'm
have
fine.
somebody who's the lowest. These are the potential concerns
to
you might
make
have,
that-
but, yes. So, really, I think the awarding authority is gonna be the town administrator, but he was happy to make sure that you guys were comfortable with
Yeah.
that. So if you would
Go
wanna
move.
make a recommendation or a vote.
Let Bob move.
Do we need a vote?
Yeah, I think you should.
I make a motion that we accept Leonard Engineering's recommendation to hire Kazowski Brothers Contracting of Charlton, Mass., who submitted the lowest bid of $144,900 to rebuild the Fife Shire Dam.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Still get the vote. Is it unanimous?
Still have to,
It's
yeah.
unanimous.
I'll be very happy when that's done.
Yeah, so now, the other thing I should say is that they are not proposing to start until May 15th. There was the option given to all of the bidders to propose something that would start sooner, and none of them did propose it that way.
fine.
So the permit really, you know, kind of from the Heritage Program ran with May 15th as being the time frame where if they had to lower any water, that was the earliest they could do that.
Okay.
Because we were in low water, it was thought, you know, maybe they could get started on it, but nobody
That's fine.
proposed it that way, so. Okay.
I'll be glad to walk the new dam. It's complete.
So I'll skip over a couple things since
We
you
might,
seem
we
to want to
might
get
put up a
going.
little statue to our former chairman that helped get this through. You think that's appropriate?
So
We'll have a
also,
nice statue of Kevin.
also under,
It's like the headstone.
under Fife Shire, and/or we could do it under the budget, but we did have a holding article to request another $40,000 if the bids came in either high or, you know, at,
Yeah.
or around the estimated cost, if we were concerned that we weren't going to have enough.
Mhm.
So I'd like to see if you want to withdraw that article.
I'd like to leave it in. We can always withdraw it later, can't we?
Why do you want to leave it in?
You don't
We've
know.
got the low bid is 23% lower than the estimate. We have the money.
Yeah.
I'd like to leave it in just in case something happens.
Okay, would you like to come to the advisory committee with me next week and talk to them about it then? Somebody
prepared to
next
defend that position.
February. Yeah, we need to defend that. I mean, I think they would like it to be removed if it's not needed. I'd have to look at the dates when the warrant when it's going to press and stuff like that, but we don't have a lot of time in between now and then. So if you want to keep it in,
So
we
you
do
think
need
the
to.
advisory's going to fight that?
I think that the town, I think it's, I don't know advisory necessarily, but I think, you know, that they, yes, I think it's possible that they would, as well as.
I would like to wait until the contracts are signed.
Well, that's going to be within like a week or so.
Once they sign it, then we can withdraw it.
Okay, so we have a meeting with the advisory committee February 11th. Our next meeting's after that.
Do you need a vote, or can we just say after
I think
the deal's signed, we'll withdraw it?
Yeah, if you want to do that, then maybe it'll happen before the 11th.
Maybe.
Is that all right with you?
Mhm.
Okay, so why don't you make that a motion then, to the,
Move. Aren't you moving?
I can't too tired of putting the words now.
so who's making the motion?
Wanna
Nate?
move? Brian?
Yeah, we're
All right.
trying, make a motion
To
to
withdraw?
conditionally withdraw,
Conditionally, okay.
what do
The
we call it,
article.
the holding,
Holding article?
holding article?
Okay,
For, what was the
for
amount?
40,000?
For $40,000
Uh,
pending receipt of a signed contract
I'll second
from current
that.
vendors.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Okay, that's fine. I think that's a good way to do it.
What else?
So, under bill, I have some bills, so I'm going to send that around.
Okay.
Also, under the announcements, did anyone have any comments on the annual report? Because that's got to be submitted.
Can't read
I was
spreadsheet.
gonna say, to be fair, a little bit through,
It
but.
wasn't a spreadsheet, it was text.
Yeah, I can't read that.
Text.
I had no comments.
Anybody? No? Okay, so I can
We
submit
should
it.
approve the minutes too.
What's that? Yeah, you should.
Well, you're getting out
but
the
I just-
bills?
Yeah,
Did I send you my feedback on the minutes?
no.
Do you have a problem with some of them?
No, I just like to edit.
She likes
as
to
I
read it
go
and edit
because-
as she goes.
Because then I can actually read them.
Anybody have a problem with any of the minutes? So I make a motion to approve the minutes of January 7th, 2013, March 5th, 2013, and March 12th, 2013.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Okay, so the bills are, we have two bills from Leonard Engineering and one from Henderson Stryker. So the Leonard Engineering are sort of split up into, one was the permitting design, the work that they were doing under that part of the contract, and then they sent out a separate bill for the bid assistance and the construction administration services. I just want to point out, I did speak with the engineer who we're working with right now, because I wanted to make sure that they're still going to come in at the same quote that they gave us, which was an estimate, because he is at a higher level than what the other engineers that we were working with were at. And because he had to ramp up, he had to do a site visit, which is included in this bill, and he said that he understood that he would make every effort to keep it within the same scope of the, the quote that they gave us.
It's the same engineering company.
Same
right?
engineering
So
company.
So if he has to ramp up, that shouldn't be our expense.
I agree.
That was my first thought. too.
Right, and I
I
guess
would
I'm not
pay-
sure whether that's my words in terms of what he billed in here. He did
Let me
bill.
take a look.
For.
If their personnel changes, that's their personnel.
I'll just show you where it is.
Because then we're going to send him a bill for reading his bill.
Yeah, so he had met with me December 26th.
And what was the purpose of that? Was that just
Catch
to
'em
ramp
up.
up, or was that
Well, I
actually?
mean, we were looking at the site, we were looking at the access, and we were looking at the dam, but, I mean, it was, I felt as though, in part, it was his ramping up, because he had never seen it, but, he maybe would justify it differently.
So I would just write him that the commission brought this up.
Yeah.
That basically, if there's been a change in personnel in Leonard, that the time, that the new engineer needs to ramp up, the price of that new engineer shouldn't be passed on to the town. So he charges, the old engineers charge $100 an hour, and this guy charges $152?
Well, and I think somebody was at 130 is what I think he told me.
Yeah.
Right, but you wouldn't have had, with the old engineer, you wouldn't have had
Well,
She
Karen,
wouldn't have gone out there to see it
Karen
again.
Fung, who was the last person who was working on the project, you know, she had just done the dam inspection. So I don't think she would have had gone
Karen
back up
Fung should have taken them out. I don't know.
when she left the firm.
Right, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would just write a note to, just to put that in writing, that we don't expect it to be up because they had a change of personnel.
How much was it for?
This is just $1,500. But they, when you get these bills, you don't really know what they are. I mean, some of it
Right.
they put in detail.
Well, I saw that and I called him on it, you know, and,
Yeah.
you know, that's why he said it the way he
They
did.
charge us $55 to send Carol an email. You
Well,
gonna
it
get
took a
your
long,
first one?
it took a long time.
Took an
to
hour.
write that email.
Took an hour.
I get 175 an hour.
Well, he went through,
So you gotta write short emails that don't deal with me.
yeah.
How much did you get as 175? Oh, you're self-employed.
I was.
Are you not anymore?
I have, did I bring up to you guys Beaver Solutions proposal again? I can't remember if I brought that up last meeting or
I
not.
love beavers.
Okay, so it was sort of related to Five Shire Dam, you know, that they won't be doing the work this spring that they normally would do for the maintenance
Mhm.
of that beaver control pipe because it's going to be taken out.
Yeah,
But they did propose to do the maintenance at Bower Springs, so I just want to make sure that you're
okay.
good with them continuing that maintenance.
Same price, a different price?
I think it's the same, to be honest. I
Okay.
didn't look at last year's, but
And we're happy
they
with the
do-
work from last year?
Yes, I've been happy with their work.
So that's
yeah.
fine.
In fact, he asked me to send him copies of the plans for the Five Shire Dam so that he could consider what he might do when they put the pipe back in, which
Mhm.
the beaver are not going anywhere, so they'll still have to do some maintenance there. And his question was whether we could ask them when they're forming the concrete, to put some bolts in it so that he can tie
Attach
the
it, yeah.
equipment into it.
That's a
you know.
good idea.
So, anyway,
We have
always
to-
thinking about.
We have to sign these?
Usually you sign the top sheet. Oh, wait, and Henderson Stryker, I just wanted to tell you, you know, Henderson Stryker's the consultant who's been doing the work out at
Yes.
Bower Springs. Their bill starts from July all the way through January, so, I don't know what this is, 13, 14, that's weird. Anyway, so that's pretty much, it's $4,655, which I anticipated.
Okay.
Just looking for a
Paperclip.
keep it together for you.
Let's see the Henderson Stryker bill.
Yeah, that's at the back.
So they waited and sent us just one bill?
What's that?
They waited and just sent us one bill?
Yeah.
He's Henderson.
They sent the next tax year.
Henderson.
So February 11th is
13,
there,
14.
I know, I have to ask him about that, that must
Maybe
have
they're
been,
on a lunar year and they have a leap month.
no.
Like in the Jewish calendar, you have a leap month every 4 years or something.
Catch up. Is there anyone who
I think
thinks
they
that they
did
would
well.
like to go to the advisory committee meeting with your budget?
She's looking at me.
February 11th?
Oh, I'm gonna be asked Henry.
What's the day of the week?
February 11th, what's the day of the week? I don't know.
It's Tuesday, right?
I think it's a Tuesday, yeah. Advisory meets on Tuesday nights as well. Bob came last year.
Come on.
Possibly.
I don't think
Good,
I'm
possibly,
around.
can I email you tomorrow?
Yeah.
And if you don't hear from me by like 1 o'clock tomorrow, email me and say.
I'll try to remember, because we'll see what the weather's doing,
If you don't,
remember?
yeah, if I'm around, actually, right now, I think I am.
Gotta step up.
I will go.
Okay. And if you want to meet ahead of the meeting to talk about it, you
That's what I
know.
would need to do,
Yeah.
yeah, but,
I have new jobs, I don't have as much time.
Good experience, but.
I'm coaching
Oh,
Sport 3 boxing.
yes, we talked about that.
Active box, but it's taking a lot of time.
I know.
It's about 10 hours a week. My
Um,
grandson, my daughter was the coach, and she had a baby.
What flavor?
Girl.
Cute.
Our second little
So,
granddaughter.
I still would like to hear from you guys about
Good.
the forest project. Is that anything you want to give me your opinion on now so we can move ahead with that? Or do you want to be able to have discussion on it and you feel like you need to do that when you're fresh?
Let's do it with fresh.
Okay.
I have a hard
And
day
the
with
other
that.
thing that we didn't get to, was the intrusion on conservation land on Von Hill, but I figure we'll have to wait until the snow's gone probably for
Right.
that one anyway, so. And then I would like to try to get some discussion, maybe at the next one, hopefully, on considering whether we want to have a policy for when we extend bylaw orders of conditions. That came up
Yes.
in part, because of your comments or questions about the escrow, whether, when we're considering extending something, whether, the escrow's been
Right,
is
my
adequate
point
as
is,
it
they say you
continues.
agreed to this, so why are you asking for something else? Well, you agreed to that, and now you're asking for an exception. So we should be able to change. If they want an exception, and we think something needs to be changed, we should ask for
Well,
that.
that's different than what I was saying, but I was saying, if somebody comes in and they say they want an extension to the permit, we don't have any policy that says what we would consider when we're going to extend it.
Yeah.
Like the state has the policy, and some of the things that we talked about tonight were similar to that with, have the regulations changed or not, and so if our regulations had changed in the time that somebody came back to look for an
Yes,
extension,
okay.
is that something we would want to, just establish, this is what we look for when we're considering the extension permit. Now, it's a little different under the bylaw because it's only an annual. Our bylaw only allows us to extend it for a year, but under the Permit Extension Act, that went away. It affected everything. So, there could be some things that could come in that had the Permit Extension Act, and now it's another year, but really it's been like 5 or 6 years, So I think it would be good to get these in place as that Permit Extension Act starts fading,
Mhm.
so that we know what we're going to be looking at. and
Could
what
you
we
write
want to
down a
be
list of
concerned
things that you could think of
I
for us
can.
to get this discussion going?
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you wanted me to do it.
Yes,
I
I
didn't want to
think
spend the
it's
time on it.
important.
if you
Yeah,
didn't.
because the Permit Extension Act, I don't know if they're gonna extend it again, but the longer they extend it, the more ramifications it has.
Yeah.
It should be like a
as the-
checklist that you go down, this is, have this, does it have that?
Right.
this is that.
Or have these things changed, when was the delineation review, if it hasn't been done within, 3 years, is that, is something, anyway, I can see, I haven't really started to think it through, but Bob's comment on the escrow was something that triggered it in my mind that, it might be something to concern with. Okay, I'm done.
So this is your last meeting you're
So-
attending?
Yeah, I think so.
So you want
It
to?
was nice of you to come in
Thank
and you
you.
didn't feel well, so.
Oh, I'm getting better. One last time.
You get me that?
Oh, well, we'll have lunch.
We'll do lunch.
Everybody says, oh, we'll be back, you're right.
Max came back. Max came back. He did come back.
Laurie?
I said, I'm gonna come back.
More garbage.
Laurie, have you been on the
Keep
committee
on
20 years?
What's that?
Have you been on the committee 20 years?
Close to it. But only half.
Because it only counts as 10,
It only counts as
just to let you know.